and religious polarization is what the voter is talking about in terms of key issues that they will make their minds on when they go out to vote. There are some rather interesting battles and some constituencies in focus as well. Remember, the Hyderabad constituency has stayed with the Owaisi family for decades now. So the BJP's challenger in Madhavi Lata is looking to change that. There is, of course, a Secunderabad constituency that's seeing G. Kishan Reddy, incumbent union minister, also stand for a 3-time re-election, even as constituencies like Warangal and Karimnagar are also intensely in focus insofar as Telangana's 17 constituencies go. Remember, the momentum, many would argue, is with the Congress, especially after the party's resounding 2023 assembly election. But for the moment, of the 17 seats, the BRS is in power in 9 of them. They're fighting to stay relevant, especially after the drubbing that they received in the 2023 polls. Assembly polls just last year. The BJP and the Congress are also locked in a battle. Which way it will go, we don't quite know as yet, but one thing is for certain: development is a key focus area, as is jobs and religious polarization. At least that's what the younger demographic of Hyderabad's voters are talking about in terms of issues that matter to Telangana.
All right. Thanks so much, Jude, for getting us those key agenda points and what's happening on the ground in Hyderabad. And Jude earlier also spoke to Hyderabad's BJP candidate and actress Madhavi Lata and began by asking her about how confident is she of BJP's victory. Listen in.
I'm confident more than 100%, because you can't take any other number more than 100 to say how confident you are.
Okay, and as far as Hyderabad is concerned, 17 constituencies, how many of them do you think the BJP will?
As of now, I would not want to give any numbers specifically, but we are extremely confident, and there's a wonderful fight in all the 17 constituencies.
Okay, last question. There's been a fair bit of religious polarization as far as your campaign is concerned. Do you think that will impact your chances in any way?
We have never done any religious polarization. We have done constituencies, entire constituency polarization, which you'd say as Bharat polarization. Okay. We have polarized the Bharat on the name of peace, on the name of progress, but we would never want to divide the country on the name of religion. This is the last thing ever I think one should be thinking to doing to this country.
What is the Hyderabad voter voting for? Last question.
Voting?
Voting for. What is the major poll?
They are voting for peace, they're voting for brotherhood, and they're voting for progress. They're voting to see a new sunrise.
Okay, well, let's move on to Andhra Pradesh now. CNN News 18's Harish joins us from Kadapa. Harish, thanks for joining in. Give us a sense of the mood on the ground in Kadapa.
Well, the entire state of Andhra Pradesh is witnessing a high-intensity battle between YSRCP, led by Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy, and the India Alliance that has Pawan Kalyan's Janasena, the TDP led by Chandrababu Naidu, and the BJP itself. Kadapa is witnessing an interesting fight. This is the fight for the legacy of late Rajshekar Reddy. You have Sharmila, the daughter of YSR, contesting on a Congress ticket from Kadapa. She's also the Andhra Pradesh Congress Committee chief. She's up against her cousin, who's backed by Jagan Mohan Reddy. He's contesting on a YSRCP ticket. We've seen bitter war of words between the siblings of YSR. At the same time, she's saying this is a fight for justice for her uncle who was killed. She's also saying Jagan, as Chief Minister, hasn't done anything for Kadapa, and she's hoping that she can open the account for Congress. Congress has taken a severe beating in Andhra Pradesh post the bifurcation, and it is hoping that Sharmila can start the revival story of Congress in Andhra Pradesh with this election. In Kadapa, with camera person Riaz, Harish Upadhyay for CNBC TV18.
All right, so that was Harish reporting and giving us the ground report. And staying with the fourth phase of the elections, well, my colleague Santya Gora also spoke to Kanhaiya Kumar, the opposition's candidate from Northeast Delhi and the CPI's 2019 candidate from Begusarai, on what he feels are the big issues for the constituency. Also remember that Union Minister Giriraj Singh is on the electoral fray from this city. Listen in.
एज ए वोटर हम बोलें तो मुद्दे तो वही के वही हैं। अभी मैं रास्ते से आ रहा था पटना से, दावा किया जा रहा था तो अगली बार चुनाव से पहले जो है वो 4 लेन का काम कंप्लीट हो जाएगा। वो काम कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है। आप भी आते होंगे पटना से तो आप देखे होंगे कि सड़कें,
मैं पहली बार इस तरफ आई हूँ।
नहीं, आप बेगूसराय जब आए होंगे पटना से तो कहीं भी जो है काम कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है। और दूसरा पिछली बार जो हम लोग एजेंडे में लोगों से बात करके जो मुद्दे बेगूसराय के लिए उठाए थे, उसमें से एक भी मुद्दे पे कोई काम नहीं हुआ है। दिनकर विश्वविद्यालय नहीं बना है। बार बार यह कहा जा रहा था कि फर्टिलाइजर चालू हो रहा है। फर्टिलाइजर चालू जरूर हुआ है हर्ल के नाम से, लेकिन किसी भी स्थानीय व्यक्ति को उसमें कोई रोजगार नहीं मिला है।
Okay, well, as we slip into a break, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in an exclusive interview with Network 18's Amish Devgan, said that there is a strong wave in the country and that they will comfortably cross 400 seats in this election. Network 18's Rahul Joshi also spoke to Piyush Goyal on crossing 400 seats. Listen in.
मैंने करीब हिंदुस्तान के एक 3-4 राज्य बाकी है, सभी राज्यों का भ्रमण किया है और सभी राज्यों के भ्रमण से मैं देख रहा हूं कि ये आंधी है, आंधी,
बड़ी आंधी।
और
2019 से बड़ी वाली आंधी
400 पार बहुत आराम से देश की जनता करने वाली है। विपक्ष 19 से 24 में विपक्ष के नाते भी विफल गया है। जो लोग विपक्ष के नाते भी विफल गए हो, उनको इतना बड़े देश का कारोबार कौन देगा?
मैंने अभी अमित शाह जी का इंटरव्यू किया, उनसे पहला सवाल पूछा। मैंने कहा ये आपका नारा था अब की बार 400 पार, तो क्या ये नारा अभी भी अपने आप में खड़ा हुआ है या गाड़ी पटरी से उतर रही है?
पूरा कायम है जी। और जब आप जमीन पर उतरते हो, जब आप लोगों के बीच जाते हो, उनका प्रतिसाय, उनका रिएक्शन, और पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स समझ लेते हैं ऑडियंस के रिएक्शन से कि क्या रिस्पांस मिल रहा है। स्पीच के दौरान क्या रिस्पांस है, विषय के दौरान क्या रिस्पांस है। मेरा तो व्यक्तिगत मानना है कि 400 पार तो होगा ही। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के 10 वर्ष का कार्यकाल और उनके 50 वर्ष का बेदाग सामाजिक जीवन, ये अपने आप में लोगों को प्रोत्साहित करते हैं और विश्वास दिला रहे हैं उनको कि मोदी जी ही हैं जो इस देश को विश्व पटल पर लेके जाएंगे।
Maruti Suzuki had first launched the Swift way back in 2005. This has been one of their highest selling models. They've sold over 3 million Swift cars so far. And now this is the 4th generation Swift that has been launched with significant upgrades. The biggest upgrade is the 1.2 litre new Z series engine. This is the best engine that Maruti Suzuki has got in its stable. It also brings down the CO2 emissions by 10%. It gives you better fuel efficiency by 14% according to Maruti Suzuki. The average mileage that you'll get across the automatic and manual variants would be anywhere between 25 kilometers a litre to 26 kilometers a litre. High on safety as well. 6 airbags as standard across variants, even in the entry-level model. 3-point safety belts. You also have seat belt alerts. In terms of infotainment and connectivity in the car, you've got a 9-inch infotainment display, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You also have a wireless charger in front, 2 USB charging ports at the back. This is the first time that the Swift will get rear AC vents as well. They've also given LED lamps here in the front and the rear. Usually these are there in premium vehicles, but Maruti has made sure that they give this to their highest selling hatchback and make this a strong premium hatchback offering. Now all of this coming at a price tag of 6.5 lakhs ex-showroom for the entry-level model, which is a manual variant. The prices go up all the way till about 9 lakhs. 2 new colors have been introduced by Maruti. One is blue and the other is orange.
Welcome back. And pressure is building again on the market. The kind of recovery it had seen, it's losing ground again. Nifty 50.4% down in trade. And it's a broad-based pressure that we are seeing right now. Moving on to some macros. India's industrial output growth slowed to 4.9% in the month of March compared to 5.7% in February. Now, the cumulative growth rate for FY24 stood at 5.8% compared to 5.2% growth in the previous financial year. And the CPI inflation data is also due today. All eyes would be on that. Ritu Singh joins in with all the details. Ritu.
Well, let me start with the IIP numbers for March, where industrial output growth rate slowed down to 4.9% compared to 5.7% in February, but this was along expected lines. The most notable decline came from mining, where output rose by 1.2% in March compared to 8% the month before. Now, growth in manufacturing and electricity sectors, they saw some acceleration, which countered the slowdown that we saw in mining. Manufacturing output expanded by 5.2%, although on a very low base, and electricity grew by a robust 8.6%, thanks to rising temperatures also boosting demand. The growth of consumer durables outpaced all other categories at 9.5%, but this also came on a low base. Now, consumer non-durables output growth, that turned positive after 2 consecutive months of contraction. The cumulative growth rate for FY24, that stood at 5.8% compared to 5.2% that we saw in FY23. Now, moving on to inflation data, which is due to be released later today, the CNBCTV18 poll shows that April CPI inflation may have only marginally eased to 4.81% from 4.85% that we saw in March. The estimates for the month range from 4.7 to 5.05%. Now, the reason we may not see a notable fall in inflation just yet is because of food prices, which account for nearly half of the CPI basket, and they continue to remain sticky. Prices of key vegetables like your tomatoes, onions, potatoes, as well as the fruits continue to remain high. Now, with parts of the country also seeing heat waves, food prices are unlikely to even come down in a hurry anytime soon. Now, our poll estimates food inflation at 8.07%, and core inflation, which is inflation without food and fuel, is seen at 3.33%, similar to the levels we saw the month before.
Okay, that's all the time we have on Business Lunch. Thanks a lot for watching. Midcap Radar will take all the market action forward.
Started bookings for this new Swift. They have received bookings for over 10,000 cars so far. This, like other Swift models, were exported to Europe and other markets around the world. This car too will also be exported. So it will be a very important product in Maruti Suzuki's portfolio, and let's see how this really does in the market, because Maruti Suzuki has invested 1,450 crores in this model, in developing this new Swift at a time when hatchback sales are actually falling. But somewhere Maruti Suzuki believes that there is still strong demand for the premium hatchback segment, and one day in the next few years, the hatchback segment will revive. With video journalist Pradeep, this is Parikshit Luthra.
Things have not changed from there. Industrials and capital goods, just to remind you, we've been overweight since October 2021, whereas most people started talking about it only last year. Where we added more recently have been some commodities, metals and cement. Though, I mean, we're not overweight there, but earlier we had very little there, so we've added some there. Most latest addition has been a bank, where we still, I mean, banking as a whole, we still remain underweight, but after bad phase, it's not looking quite so bad anymore. So some of the stocks are beginning to look a little better than they used to. Just as, I mean, we are now watching IT, that sometime this year, I think that will bottom out and that will give a good buying opportunity.
Good afternoon, you're watching us here on Midcap Radar. I'm Manglam Malu, with me Vivek. Today there was a recovery for the markets. From there it seems like it's sold into. Let's see what happens in the last couple of hours of trade. But suffice to say, we're out of the woods, but perhaps not quite out yet.
Well, you're absolutely right. The good part is, the initial sell-off that we saw, that was something that got bought into, and I think that will give some bit of a relief to the bulls. But like you mentioned, it'll be very important to see whether that can be sustained in the last hour of the session. But right now, we have a management on our show. Let's now focus on Piramal Pharma, which is surging today on the back of a strong Q4 earnings. Their revenue saw an 18% increase, while margins are also at multi-quarter high. Our colleague Ekta Batra spoke to Nandini Piramal, the chairperson of the company, on their Q4 performance and began by asking about innovation spending in FY25 and the biotech scenario in the US. Listen in.
Overall, at a PPL level, we're guiding for early teens growth in both revenue and EBITDA. As you mentioned rightly, the biotech funding has been difficult. And if that improves, which we hope at the end next, maybe second half, that will be an upside for us. We've also seen that our innovation-related business for the first time last year in FY24 crossed 50%. And our hope is that, and our intention is we should see that grow faster than the generic business.
Okay, all right. So the innovation piece is probably going to grow faster than the generic piece. That's interesting. I was going to get to your guidance a little later, but I'll address it now. Revenue and EBITDA growth to be in early teens. Besides CDMO, what are the other key growth drivers?
So our India consumer healthcare should be growing faster. And our CHG business will be slightly muted in terms of EBITDA growth. And the reason is we've got some certain regulatory and tech transfer spend that will have to happen this year so that we can see good medium-term growth.
Okay. So when you said biotech funding, if in case that scenario improves, what is the upside to the guidance that we could probably expect?
I think we'll have to wait and see. Right now, I would honestly say while biotech funding has improved in the first 3-4 months of the year, it's still too early to be a trend. And I think we'll know more at the second half.
Would it still be in the teens, or do you think that it can push up growth to say even the early 20s?
No, I think we'll keep to the teens.
Okay, we'll keep to the teens. The other key point which stood out this quarter were the margins, which have improved to a multi-quarter high of around 20-odd%. What is the guidance for FY25, considering that there are these non-reoccurring expenditures that you have alluded to in the complex hospitals generics business, as well as expenses for medium-term growth?
So we have improved EBITDA, as we've seen over the year and over the quarter. The reason is it is a fixed cost business, so higher revenue actually translates to better operating margins, as well as we've been paying a lot of attention onto cost optimization and operational excellence. So each of these, I think, has helped contribute. For over the next year, we're saying we're going to keep to an early teens growth in EBITDA for over the full year.
What would margins be? A range?
I think we'll say about, pretty much about the same or maybe a little bit better.
Okay. And your eventual margin guidance is 23 to 24%. When do you envisage that to take place by?
I think in the 3 to 5 year time frame.
Okay, so not in the near term at least.
No.
All right. What are the opportunities in the antibody drug conjugate space that you are seeing?
So this is, I think, a very exciting space, and we've actually been one of the few players that have been doing conjugation for a long time. We've been in the business, and so across the board, we've actually done a lot of work in development and commercialization. Last year, we actually opened our expansion to do more commercial scale. And what we've seen is over the last year, people used to, go to separate places for commercial as well as antibody or the payload. Now people are looking at integrated offerings. So last year, actually, we had our first order that actually combined all 3 steps, the MAB, the payload, as well as the conjugation and the fill finish. And we think that's a trend that will continue, and we're well positioned to meet that trend.
Okay. You seem to be cautious on the complex hospital generic space. While there could be costs, there was also some amount of pricing pressure. I do understand in one of your key products, there was a price cut which took place. What was the extent of the price cut? Do you expect this price competition to continue?
So in a generics market, there will be price pressure always. But the benefit in the complex hospital generics is you have multiple year contracts, and because we sell in 100 countries across the world, kind of these contracts will keep renewing. So there was some price pressure. We expect some of it to continue. I think that's part of the name of the game, but we'll continue to add new products. We have a bunch of products that are under development. And so between that and our cost optimization and margin enhancement, because we're vertically integrated in the inhalation anesthesia, we should see benefit. We should be able to maintain margins at least.
Well, just, focusing on the debt as well, because the company's guidance includes a further improvement in debt ratios. You've improved it to around, I think, around 2.9 times. Total debt is down to around 3,932 crores. Where does it go from here in FY25?
See, as we said, we'll see an absolute improvement in EBITDA in the numbers, and we will repay some debt, and we'll actually look at reducing it further. I don't have an exact number for you, but the direction is a reduction of net debt to EBITDA.
Quickly then, Nandini, before we let you go, just wanted your thoughts on the Biosecure Act in the US. It is expected to be beneficial for India and especially for companies such as Piramal Pharma. What is the impact? How much do you expect it to be beneficial to you? Are you seeing queries come through already on account of it?
So the Biosecure Act, as your viewers know, hasn't yet been kind of made into law. And if it does get made into law, I think it will depend on what is actually part of the wording and how much of a transition period that they give for people to move products. But I do think some customers are looking at new changing, so especially for new products. So we are seeing an uptick in RFPs.
Okay, so you are seeing some incremental queries come through.
Yes.
Do you expect it to turn into a tangible opportunity for Indian pharma in FY25, FY26?
Sometimes these things take a long time between sort of query to actually revenue. So I think we'll have to wait and see.
Right, guiding for early teen revenue growth as well as EBITDA. That's the management of Piramal Pharma. The stock doing extremely well, up 5% in an otherwise wobbly market. Now, as we speak, the Nifty is down about 100 points, a fair distance from where we were at the high point of trade. And the mid-caps have it worse as well. In fact, all through today's trading session, the mid-cap index was actually underperforming the front line end itself. So since we're talking about mid-caps and this is mid-cap movers, let's talk about all those mid-cap movers with Hormaz, who's standing by at the big wall. Hormaz.
It was the right word that you described, right? A wobbly session, right? You opened far lower, now you've recovered, and then you're back heading downwards again. So let's start off with some of the losers, and real estate is taking a beating again. Prestige Estates is down 4%. Suzlon, shipbuilders are not having a good day today. So Mazagon Dock, Cochin Shipyard, both of them trading with losses of almost 4%. And as is Praj Industry is now trading with losses of 4.5%. Plenty of earnings came out over the weekend and after Friday market close. We just heard the management of Piramal Pharma. The stock is off the highs of the day, but still trading with gains of 5%. BEML is the one though, 13% higher, but still significantly off the highs, or the record high though. It's still away from those levels. Dr. Lal Path Labs, the brokerages are mixed there, but still 6.5% higher. And Bank of India, the reaction to those earnings, they're 11% lower after the results. Some stocks are a 52-week high. ABB India, the standout earnings possibly for the day, that is at a 52-week high, 10% higher there. CG Power and Polycab also trading with at a 52-week high, as was Havells, but that has cooled off from the highs of the day. Some stocks that are gaining on the back of volumes and losing as well. Syrma SGS, though 17% lower at one point, is the trading with heavy volumes there. Siemens and Hindustan Zinc also 5 to 6% gains there on extremely strong volumes. And lastly, some stocks that are bucking the trend in today's session. And Hitachi Energy, they're 6% higher. Welspun Corp, Tejas Networks and CEAT are some of the stocks that are seeing a bit of green in an otherwise red screen. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Hormaz, for that list of very good names, that are making the waves as far as the broader end of the markets are concerned. But let's now slip into a short break. When we return, we'll be joined by the management of CCL Products to discuss the quarter gone by. Stay tuned.
ставят на пьедесталы предателей и пособников гитлеровцев. Перечеркивают память о героизме и благородстве солдат-освободителей, о той великой жертве, которую они принесли во имя жизни. За победу! Ура!
I think there is a re-rating in progress for the entire PSU Bank, given that there is far more autonomy today. They are the leadership in many of these companies have been given or have been made more accountable for.
Welcome back. The stock on our radar is CCL Products. Now, you would look at their fourth quarter numbers and you'd say, okay, here's the company which has reported its revenue growth of almost 40%, but EBITDA hasn't grown in line and the net profit has too seen a decline. But, there are a couple of internals that need to be monitored. One, the revenue has grown apart from volumes, largely because of increase in the commodity price and increasing capacity. EBITDA for the company is largely locked on a per kg basis. So, as a result of which, we do not see a concomitant increase in the absolute EBITDA, and the net profit, of course, impacted on account of their higher capacity and finance costs as well, which resulted in both higher depreciation and finance costs. So, to talk us through the outlook for the company, we do have with us T. Chala Srisant, who is the Managing Director of CCL Products, joining us on our show. Chala, thank you so much for joining in. Always a pleasure speaking with you. So, let's kickstart with the targets that you have for this year. In the fourth quarter, what was your volume growth? And what are you targeting for FY25 with all the capacity that has come on?
Yeah, so we had a total volume growth for the whole year at about 14%. We were actually impacted because of the roaster breakdown that happened in our quarter 2, which we had announced earlier. So we were not able to make up for that balance because of the higher coffee prices. But this year being a more normal year, again, we're looking at about a 15-20% volume growth. And only one uncertainty that is there right now is with the coffee prices going up so high, people are not willing to give more long-term contracts. They're working on a 2 to 3 months basis only. So this is one of the first years for us where we don't have normally we have about 85-95% of confirmed orders before the year starts. This is the first year we have only about 60% orders in place before the year started.
Okay, Chala, Vivek here. Also, you mentioned that there aren't too many long-term contracts in place for FY24. Give us a sense of the kind of contracts that you're getting into and what kind of revenue visibility do you have? The second question is, as far as EBITDA per kg is concerned, the key metric that we track, what is the outlook for FY25?
Yeah, so one, with respect to the long-term contracts, the different types of customers that we have, there are certain brands that place orders with us a year in advance or sometimes even 2 to 3 years in advance. So that business is normal. So they don't really care about the fluctuation in prices. But a lot of repackers and resellers, these are companies that don't want to take too much of a risk. So whenever the prices are on the lower trend or if they feel there's going to be a correction, that's when we start getting more orders from them. And the second question, can you just repeat once again?
What is the EBITDA per kg? What is it that you're guiding the street for?
Yeah, so the EBITDA per kg also is still the same. It's about 105 rupees approximately. And we are expecting it to be along the same lines, maybe a slight improvement because of the mix change that we're expecting this year. We're focusing more on small packs and on more premium products as well. But we're not expecting any drastic change in the EBITDA per kg. And volumes, since they'll increase, automatically the EBITDA, absolute EBITDA also will be increasing this year.
All right, so absolute EBITDA increase, EBITDA per kg closer to around that 100 rupees per kg itself. You spoke about small packs and premium products. What exactly is the contribution currently from both these verticals, and how much do you anticipate them to be by the end of, say, FY25 and early FY26?
So small packs and premium products both put together around 35% of our production comes from these two segments. We're increasing by maybe another 5 to 10% is what we are targeting this year.
All right. And you, your capacity expansion, you have existing capacity coming in from, freeze-dried capacity coming in from Vietnam in the second half of this year. Where does your total capacity stand at right now? If you could give us a sense, and what's the capacity addition, both spray-dried and freeze-dried?
Yeah, so today our India expansion just got over in the month of March, and we are currently at around 71,000 tons. Our freeze-dried expansion should be completed by around August. Then we will be at 77,000 tons.
Okay, so capacity expansion in India you've spoken about. Give us a sense of how the London-based band's performance actually panned out. Earlier you said that you're looking at a target sales of close to 100 crore in the next 2 to 3 years. So is that on track or any changes over there?
Yes, we are on track for that. So the first year itself, we did about 12 crores of sale. And this 12 crore also is basically what we had done was we had taken over a declining brand and we focused on doing the transition during this first year. Now we are relaunching the entire brand with the new formulation, with the new artworks and everything. We are going back to basics. One of the insights that we got is that the reason for the brand decline also was the change in product formulation. So the product formulation that we originally came up with initially, that is what we are reverting to now. So we're expecting that volumes to start coming in going forward.
All right. And what about the domestic branded business? You had a target of over 200 crores for FY24.
Yes.
Where did that number end? And this year, what's the target?
So we were at about 210 crores this year for the domestic branded business. We are looking at maybe around 350 to 400 crores for the current financial year.
With EBITDA positivity?
Yes.
Chala, one more question from our end. You've mentioned quite a few of these points, but it'd be good to get clarity on all of them. Just reiterate for our viewers the FY25 guidance. You did say you're expecting volumes to grow in the range of 15 to 20%. So what is the volume range that you're targeting? The revenue? You said EBITDA is going to grow. So what is the EBITDA that you're targeting to grow? Margins and the bottom line?
Yeah, so the revenue growth will actually be dependent on the raw material prices, which are fluctuating and kind of all over the place. So one of the reasons why you can see the kind of revenue growth closer to 40% now is because the prices of green coffee have almost doubled. But in the last couple of weeks, they've started softening. There was almost an $800 correction that took place, which was in line with the new crop coming online. So if the markets correct further, then that revenue growth also will get accordingly adjusted. So revenue growth is something that we are not really very confident about giving a guidance on because it's fluctuating a lot since ours is a cost-plus model. The EBITDA growth is something that we are more confident about because it's directly linked to the volumes. And the volumes is what we're looking at, that 15 to 20% increase.
All right, final couple of questions before we let you go. Chala, if you could currently give us a sense of what your domestic market share is in the stores that you operate, so the addressable market, how much would that be? And secondly, on the balance sheet, because of all these expansions that you're doing, debt has increased as well. Where does it peak out? When do repayments begin?
Yeah. So as far as the domestic market is concerned, in South India, in especially AP and Telangana, we have almost 11-12% market share. This year, we are actually starting to target other states as well. So our market share is likely to increase over there. As far as the debt is concerned, this year actually is when we are expecting the debt to peak out. We were at about 1,600 crores last financial year. This year, we're looking at about 2,000 crores of debt. That's working capital of almost about 1,400 crores. And the balance is the long-term debt. but a little bit of restructuring that we're doing internally and optimizing our finance costs as well. So it's not going to be a significant impact on the balance sheet this year onwards.
Thank you so much, Ella, for joining us and answering all of those questions. When you're talking about CCL Products, a little bit under pressure today, but the long-term guidance, FY25 guidance, is quite strong. Let's now slip into a short break. Up next, we will put focus on Syrma SGS Tech in our Midcap Spotlight segment. Stay tuned.
Getting the opportunities to grow. So I guess there's a re-rating in progress. So we continue to be positive there, even though we are selective in our approach to investing. And there's a shift away from the unorganized sector to the organized sector in many cases. So smaller companies having achieved scale are now growing faster, and that's the reason why you're seeing this trend of the mid and small caps in the broad market outperforming the large cap indices. There are far more opportunities on the broad market side, given that growth is currently better and the outlook is also better on that side.
We see double-digit growth, and likely that it will stay that way also in FY25 and beyond. We naturally have the same set of numbers as it's a joint venture. We are very excited about the opportunity to collaborate with Nestle. Nestle has a very, very rich pipeline of products that currently is not registered in India. So on top of the fact that both partners put their products into the JV, there is a very, very big potential for bringing the products that are clinically proved to India. And in addition to that, it's opening an additional opportunity to collaborate with Nestle. We are very...
Welcome back to Midcap Radar. The stock that we are focusing on today, the company declared its Q4 results, Syrma SGS Technology. The stock has slumped over 15% in trade today as margin has disappointed in the fourth quarter. This is our special segment, Midcap Spotlight. Upasna will be focusing on the stock. Upasna, over to you.
Well, weak set of numbers reported by Syrma SGS. The revenue stood up by almost 67% on a Y-on-Y basis, and the strong revenue growth was mainly led by healthcare and consumer segment. But it is important to note the margins of the companies where the stress lies. The EBITDA margin is down almost about 220 basis points at 7.2% versus 9.4% on a Y-on-Y basis. And higher contribution from consumer business, higher RM cost of new customers and prevailing component shortage has led to the dent in the margins. Well, it is also important to know that the export revenues of the company has also come down from 28% to 23% on a Y-on-Y basis. Now coming to profit of the company, it's up just about 5% on a Y-on-Y basis. And in terms of FY24 numbers, the margins are also under pressure. They stand at 6.8% versus 9.5% on a Y-on-Y basis, and revenue is up about 54%. While the company says that the EMS continues to witness strong traction across industry verticals, and company remains confident and aspires to grow in line with the industry growth rate is what the company has highlighted. So all in all, we see a weak Q4 reported by Syrma SGS.
All right, that was our mid-cap spotlight. Just keep an eye on a couple of these mid-caps which are doing well. Now the markets have again begun to rally. The Nifty is moved back into the green, and this one seems a lot more formidable because we have the mid-cap index which is doing well as well. So the Nifty Bank is up 250 points. When we started the show, they were at the trenches, as you can see at around 130 on your screen, and now it's surged with the mid-cap index having moved as well, and now virtually into the green for that index too. Spencer's Retail is doing extremely well. Cera Sanitaryware reported its numbers just moments ago. That stock too has moved to the high point of trade with a gain of about 4.5%. And D-Link is the other stock which has seen a big move, about 10% from lows. up around 13% right now. And the volumes on that have also picked up nearly 10 times what we see on a regular day for D-Link India. That's the stock which is up around 13.5%, closing in on that 400 rupee mark for that stock with a fair amount of volumes. There you have that one. But among all of this, one of the stocks which is under pressure is Bank of India after reporting their fourth quarter numbers. Earlier today, we spoke with Rajneesh Karnatak, who's the MD and CEO of the company, on their FY25 outlook. Let's hear out what he had to say.
As far as the slippage ratio is concerned, we are targeting a number of around 1.20% for the slippage March 25 slippage ratio. As regards the gross NPA number is concerned, you have seen that this gross NPA has come down from 7% plus to 4.98%. We expect further it should be at around 4% in FY25. So for the guidance for March 25 would be on the deposit side 11 to 12% and advances side 13 to 14%. So the guidance for the financial year 25 is on the net interest margin side is that our net interest margin on a global level should be at around 2.95% and this net interest margin on the domestic side should be at around 3.35%.
Well, amidst a very strong comeback that we are seeing across all of the indices, that's all the time we have on this edition of Midcap Radar. Your stocks when we return.
It's a monumental day at Donald Trump's hush money criminal trial in New York City. Porn actor Stormy Daniels, the woman who received $130,000 from Donald Trump's former lawyer, took the witness stand. She testified about what she says was a sexual encounter with Trump at a celebrity golf outing in 2006. Stormy Daniels testified about meeting Trump. She was there as part of a sponsorship deal with her studio. She said Trump invited her to dinner. She went to his hotel, went up to his hotel suite to meet him. And there, they had a conversation that lasted about 2 hours. It's then, she says, that Trump had sex with her. The judge, prosecutors, and defense attorneys had long discussions before Stormy Daniels took the stand, plotting out exactly what would be allowed in, what jurors could hear, and what they could not. Stormy Daniels has talked a lot about this alleged encounter over the years, but this was the first time that she was in a courtroom in a criminal trial coming face to face with Donald Trump. Trump appeared upset at times, angry at things that Stormy Daniels was saying. He was talking, muttering to his lawyers. Jurors were riveted. They were transfixed by her testimony. Several times during her testimony, Trump's lawyers objected when they felt that she was going beyond the scope of what had been established as the ground rules. She talked about the sexual encounter in details that she was not supposed to, they argued. But Judge Susan Nicholas asked Stormy Daniels if she wants to see Trump in jail. And Stormy Daniels said, yes, she did. If he's found guilty in this case, he should be punished. Nicholas also asked Daniels if she was trying to extort Trump when she was shopping her story or having a friend shop her story in the press in the months leading up to the 2016 election. Stormy Daniels was forceful in her response. She says that is false. She said she did not try to extort Donald Trump. We expect to hear more from Daniels about that deal, about that $130,000 payment, and about the aftermath. What happened after the election, what happened when her story became public, and what has happened up until now, which is Donald Trump on trial in the first criminal trial of a former U.S. president.
We've seen the regulator being very vigilant about every pocket and
Hello and welcome to Your Stocks on CNBC TV18 in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Hormuz Fatakia. It's a very, very swift recovery that the market is witnessing right now. The Nifty is back in the green now and well above the mark of 22,100. Now almost 300 points off the lows of the day, which were around 21,850. Pull up the Bank Nifty as well, and that is also seeing a bit of a recovery from the lows of the day. And the contributors there that's leading the recovery there, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank. So the banking heavyweights are leading the recovery, as is Asian Paints and some contribution coming in from IT as well. The Nifty Bank there you can see they're almost 350 points higher now, swiftly heading towards the mark of 48,000 as we speak. So good going there. The market recovering, a very swift recovery for the markets, and the banking heavyweights are leading the recovery there. Now what is not doing well though is Tata Motors, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But let's get to our first query of the day, and Madhvi is writing to us from Vizag, and she is holding 50 shares of Tata Motors at 289. And let's introduce our guests as well first. We have joining in on the show today, we have Kush Bothra and Astha Jain, Kush Bora, sorry, and Astha Jain from Hem Securities. Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in. Start off with that query from Tata Motors there. Madhvi is holding 50 shares of Tata Motors at 289. She wants to know whether she can hold the stock for the short to medium term and a long term perspective as well. So Kush, for the short to medium term, she's almost very well in the money, almost 4.5x from her buy price. What's the call there on Tata Motors?
Hey, hi, Hormus. Good to see you on the show here. Hi, Asta. Well, first up, I don't think there is a major structural damage when it comes to, the stock price. I know the stock's seeing a big crack today on the back of good volumes. But from a purely technical standpoint, there are a couple of support zones that will kick in. 940 is one such level, and then, a little lower, perhaps 900 is going to act as a support zone. Since she's a long-term investor, my suggestion is to, wait up, not be in a hurry to sell. Even from a medium to short-term perspective, I think the stock could witness a rebound from these 940 to 910 levels if it were to get to 910. So wait for that dip. Perhaps this might even actually be an opportunity to add some more, at least from a medium to a long-term perspective.
Right. What about you, Astha? There are a lot of downgrades that came in for Tata Motors this morning post the results. The management commentary was very subdued as well. The JLR margins for FY25 are expected to be flat, as a result of which came the downgrades, and you're seeing the fall in the stock as well today. What's your call now for the long term? What should Madhvi do, since she has made plenty of profits in her investment anyway?
Hi, good afternoon to both of you. So talking about discounter, yes, the results were not up to the mark, but what we should look at the broader story, and the broader story is that, first of all, on the Jaguar Land Rovers, if I talk about that counter, basically management is quite optimistic to turn it into the net cash positive by end of FY25. So that is one major positive about this company. Secondly, if we talk about their guidance also, yes, their guidance is not that strong, but we are expecting some good launches in H2 of FY25. So on the basis of that, and then now this deleveraging plan which is going on in the company, it is taking very well, place in the company. So I think all these points are indicating to the long-term story. And in the short term, we might look some sort of weakness, but in the long term, the story is still intact. We are quite optimistic on this counter, recommending a hold, maybe not buy at the present level because some more downside can be seen. So that will be the better opportunity to enter into the counter. But yes, hold from our side with a price target of 1,070 to 1,080 at the initial levels.
Hold at current levels there. Astha and Kush both hold that thought, because the numbers of UPL are flashing on your screen, and it's a surprise on the bottom line though. The company, the poll was anticipating a net loss. The company has delivered a profit there, a 40 crore net profit coming in compared to a loss of 356 crore as an estimate there, and that is also aided, mind you, by a one-time gain of 105 crores. So if you exclude that one-time gain, it's still a net loss, but the company on the bottom line though is still reflecting as a profit. The revenue though is well above estimates. Revenue coming in at around 14,078 crores for UPL compared to the CNBCTV18 poll of 11,720 crore. The main commentary though will be awaited on two fronts. One is the debt that the management had guided towards the end of the third quarter, that they are going to reduce their debt to $2.5 billion from 3.7 billion. So that will be on the radar once the investor presentation comes in, and also on the guidance that they would give for FY25. So the two things that need to be watched out for, one is the guidance for FY25 and the debt as well. Now EBITDA also well above the poll there, 1932 crores is the EBITDA compared to the poll of 1213 crores. So overall very good numbers from UPL. The one-time gain has contributed to the profit, but even though if it excluding the profit, it's still a loss, but the loss is also narrower than what was expected, and that is showing up in the stock price as well. 5.5% higher now on UPL, almost 530 as we speak. Those are numbers coming in from UPL. Astha, would you like to comment on the numbers? The first cut, though, looks pretty impressive from UPL. A one-time gain has contributed to the profit, but it's still a profit loss, though it's still narrower than what was anticipated.
Absolutely right. Because what happened, we were expecting the loss to be as high as around 380 crores. But this time what we are seeing the profit, although this profit is majorly driven by one-time gain. But even if I exclude this one-time gain also, then also the loss is not that as high which we were expecting. On the contrary, what we are also expecting the margins to be at around 10.3%. That is EBITDA margin, which I am expecting right now. So I really need to see, because the EBITDA is higher than our expectation. We were expecting the EBITDA of around 1200 to 1300 CR, but here the EBITDA is high. So we really need to see how the EBITDA is taking place, and definitely on the top line it is beat. So yes, if the losses are not that high as markets are expecting, definitely markets will give a thumbs up, and prima facie results are looking quite strong. We really need to see the fine prints, but yes, at the initial level, results are looking good to us. And if the numbers in depth are also as good as what we are expecting right now, then we are giving a hold rating to this counter, and our price target for the same is around 570 to 580.
And the management also had guided that at the end of the December quarter that the loss for FY24 would be anywhere between 1200 to 1400 crores, and considering this one-time gain that has contributed to the profit, the loss for FY24 is bang on at 1200 crores. So in line with what the management guided for, and the net debt number is flashing on your screen as well, $2.6 billion compared to $3.76 billion. So pretty much in line with what the management had guided for. They had said that the debt will be down to $2.5 billion. It's at 2.66 billion, and it compared to the 3.7 billion that we had during the December quarter as well. So another parameter where UPL has met the guidance that the management had given. The tax expenses also significantly lower, and that has contributed to the bottom line as well. The stock continues to grow from strength to strength, now 6.5% higher on UPL. So debt meeting the guidance, the loss, the bottom line figure has also met the guidance, and so good going there for UPL. 534 now, and we'll get to UPL. The management will be joining in just a bit, but until then, let's take another query, and that comes from Ajit, and he's writing to us from Pune. He's holding 50 shares of Bandhan Bank at 370 rupees. He wants to know whether to hold or to book his losses or switch to some other profitable counter. Now, Bandhan Bank is almost halved from the levels that he's purchased it. So, Kush, if you can go take a stab at this one, what do the charts of Bandhan Bank suggest? Should he book his losses and move on to some other options that are available on the street right now?
Well, Bandhan Bank has been on our exit list for some time now, and he's seen a bulk of the pain, with the down move here. My suggestion would be to perhaps bear a little bit of pain and hold with a stop loss of 170, because there are green shoots of the stock attempting a recovery. Whether that will be successful or not remains to be seen. Beyond the level of 210, we'll have some sort of a confirmation whether this recovery is sustainable. But I think the risk reward ratio from here on is extremely attractive, so to speak. So 170 is a positional stop. If that is broken, then the recent rebound or the recent jump will also be negated. So bear some more pain and hold with a stop loss of 170. On the upside, you may get an opportunity to exit at levels of 220 and perhaps 250 as well. All the way up until his buy price, that might take some time. So that's what my suggestion would be: hold with a stop loss of 170.
Hold with a stop loss of 170 there. So hold that thought, guys, because the investor presentation for UPL is also out, and the company has issued its guidance for FY25. It's expecting revenue growth of 4 to 8% for the current financial year, and an EBITDA growth of over 50%. So that is the guidance that UPL is issuing, and they are also saying that $300 to $400 million of operational free cash generation will be used for debt reduction. So guidance coming in there for UPL 3 to 4%. 4 to 8% revenue growth actually for FY25. The stock, though, is slightly off the highs of the day. It was up almost 6.5% at one point. It's cooled off slightly. It's now up just 5%, but still trading with significant gains. We'll get more details on the outlook going forward as well. So at least on the debt front and on the bottom line front, the company has met its estimates there. The revenue for FY24 was down 20%. EBITDA is almost halved as well. The debt, as the management had guided for, down to 2.5%. Now the stock is cooling off significantly from the highs of the day. Now it's almost down below 4% now. So that is the commentary coming in from UPL when it comes to the guidance. So we'll speak more about this to the management as well. But moving on to our next query, and Arun is writing to us from Chennai, and he wants to know he can consider L&T for a short-term investment. Now, Astha, L&T is not a stock that gives you sharp swings in a very short span of time, but considering the numbers that the company issued and the guidance as well and the resultant stock reaction, can he consider buying the dip that has come into L&T?
I think we should wait for some more time and let this dip be widened, and then one can make an entry in the counter. Although they have cut the guidance, and that is not liked by the street, and we have seen that streets are not liking such sort of cut down in the guidance, and as a result, we have seen the stock falling. But what we are expecting that they will continue to show strong performance going ahead. Also, right now we really need to see how their order book will poised to be in the coming future, because what we have seen is there are some supply chain issues also, and most of their contracts are the fixed price contract. So all these things we will need to see how the company will be showing in their coming quarterly results. Although in this results, cut in the management guiding is taking a wider picture, and that's why we have seen a fall. Right now, no buying is recommended. Maybe buying is recommended at dips at around 3100 to 3200 levels, and then price target can be set at around 3400 to 3450, but not at the current level we are recommending buy on this counter.
Right. All right, Astha, there's one final query as well that's coming in from Umesh, and he's writing to us from New Delhi, and he's holding 350 shares of Adani Enterprises. He's bought those shares at 32.78, and he's a short-term investor, and he wants to know whether he can continue holding the stock. So, Kush, he's currently trading with a bit of losses on his positions. He bought those shares at around 3,300. Adani Enterprises is currently at 28.50 as we speak. Do you see the stock going towards those levels, towards his buy price anytime soon, post which then he can consider an exit, or should he continue to hold the stock and average it down as it moves lower?
So, Harman's not a big fan of averaging, so will not recommend that certainly. But from a technical standpoint, if you see, then the stock is flirting with the 200-day moving average, trying to protect it very dearly. But on the weekly front, there is an upward sloping trend line support that comes in close to 27.50. So my suggestion is, hold this with a stop loss of 27.50. If that is broken, then the pain could accelerate. But if that is held, then the stock could attempt a rebound. And if his holding capacity is let's say anywhere from 3 to 6 months, then he could very well see his buy price also coming in that time frame.
Right. Astha, what about you? Because Adani Enterprises is not a stock that is very widely tracked on the street. Now, considering this gentleman is holding his positions with a bit of losses, what is your long-term call on Adani Enterprises, considering it is the incubation company and then it gives out to a lot of subsidiaries and lists them, and therefore its business continues as well? What's your call on the stock, if any?
So only for long term, we are recommending hold on this counter, and the price target can be set at around 3,200. So if we have seen the numbers, the core infra business is really working well for the company, in which they have roads, in which they have ANIL, that is Adani New Industries Limited ecosystem, and the roads, and in fact airport business is also gaining traction, because what we have seen that they have seen increase in their passenger.
All right, I guess we've lost the line there with Astha, but that's what she's recommending. The core here is that she's recommending a buy only for the long term. But Kush and Astha, thanks a lot for joining in and answering our queries from our viewers this afternoon. That was Kush and Astha joining in there, answering some of the viewer queries. Time for a short break, but don't go anywhere. The management of UPL joins in on the other side to discuss the quarter gone by, and stay tuned. We'll be right back on the other side.
Was initially supposed to be only on the personal loans and on the consumer loans segment. It just at some level the market will now keep this in the back of its mind that there would always be some regulatory pressures which will come along the way, especially if some of these segments continue to show very strong growth. Obviously, in the mind of the market, there has been an elevated expectation, and I think irrespective of whatever the outcome would have been, probably I would have thought that there would have been a correction, whether it would have been a sell on news or probably some kind of disappointment in terms of the outcome for the incumbent government. So I think both ways there was going to be a correction in my view. But I think the market, Sonia, is very strongly focused on an expectation of 15% compounded earnings over the next 2 years at the broad corporate level.
As I mentioned right in the beginning, you're here for the IPL tournament, which is going on in full swing. This is your first time leading a T20 side. You have led, of course, Australia in ODI and Test. What has been your experience leading, the Orange Army over the past few weeks?
Yeah, it's been fun. I think, first of all, T20 cricket, it happens so fast. You've got to make decisions quickly. Sometimes you finish your over and you remember you haven't chosen who's going to bowl next over. You've got to quickly think about it. So that's been one aspect. I think working with a lot of the Indian players I didn't really know super well before coming over has been great as well. Learning about what motivates them, what makes them tick, and just seeing the kind of raw talent of a lot of these guys has been awesome. So a little bit of a different experience, but most of it's the same. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and nature of IPL is such that you get to, play with and work.
Welcome back. We're joined by the management of UPL now after their fourth quarter results to discuss the way forward. Mike Frank, the CEO of UPL Corporation, is joining in. Mike, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in and congratulations on the quarter gone by. You've met most of your guidances on most of the parameters. I'd like to first talk about the volumes where you have mentioned that they have recovered well in the fourth quarter, and now they're saying that the recovery was led by the high margin differentiated and the sustainable portfolio. Do you see this volume recovery sustaining as we head into FY25 going forward, or do you see that as a bit of an aberration?
Yeah, hi Hormaz, great to be with you today, and thanks for your comments. Yeah, as you saw in the quarter four results, our volumes were roughly equivalent to the fourth quarter of last year, and so we were pleased to finally see the recovery in the market from a volume standpoint. Obviously, the headwinds on pricing continue to persist through quarter four. To your question in terms of volumes looking forward, as we look to FY25, as we just guided this afternoon, we're expecting revenues to be up in the range of 4 to 8%, all of that being volume led. And so we are expecting a growth of volumes in the next year. And we believe that'll occur through the quarters, but the normalization of margins will happen mostly through the second half of the year.
You've highlighted in your investor presentation, Mike, that there are still some challenges in volume growth due to the excess supply that is coming in from China and the product bans in South Europe as well. Do you see that situation normalizing anytime soon?
Yeah, Hormaz, so, as we report across two segments, the post-patent segment and then the differentiated and sustainable segment, and as you mentioned earlier, the growth was really strong in our differentiated and sustainable segment, which now represents about 35% of our business last year, and we believe will represent even more in the year forward. So that part of our business, which is high value to our grower customers and higher margins, we expect that's where we'll continue to see volume growth and margin expansion. In the post-patent segment, that'll continue to be a very competitive segment. We don't expect prices from China to increase as we go through next year. That being said, as we refresh our inventory, we can be very competitive against the prices coming out of China. And so even in the post-patent segment, especially as we get into Q3 and Q4 of next year, we believe margins will be normalizing in that segment as well.
Right. Mike, you've mentioned that Europe and rest of the world saw double-digit growth, but Europe is just around 10% of your business. What about Latin America? That is the major part of your top line as well, right? Almost 40% of your top line comes from Latin America. What is the situation on ground there? Because you've highlighted some challenges during this quarter as well.
Yeah, I would say Latin America is really a two-sided story. On the one side, Brazil continues to destock. We continue to see strong grower demand for our products and technologies, but distribution has continued to sell down inventory, and they want to replenish inventories really much closer into the season, so kind of a wait-and-watch approach. And of course, that impacts kind of when we sell into the channel. Across the rest of Latin America, excluding Brazil, our business there has been very robust. We've seen really strong growth in countries like Mexico and Argentina, but really across Latin America. In this past year, we had a very strong business, both from a revenue and a margin perspective, and we would believe that that momentum is going to continue into next year. Europe, you asked a little bit about Europe, Hormaz, and I would just say, we've got a very nice business in Europe. It was impacted a little bit last year by destocking and also wet weather as we came through the last quarter. We do see volumes regaining here even as we start this new year, and so we're expecting a strong year from Europe this upcoming season.
Right. Mike, I wanted to ask you about the debt as well. And you mentioned in your December quarter earnings call that you bring down the debt from 3.7 to 2.5. You've brought it down to 2.6. Do you see that figure trending downwards in FY25? Is there a number that you can guide for?
Yes, we do see it trending down in FY25. Our guidance for FY25 is that we'll generate between $300 and $400 million of free cash from operations, all of that going to debt pay down. We've also announced that we will do a rights issuance, which we would expect to happen sometime during Q2 or Q3, and that will also generate up to $500 million, and those proceeds will also be used to pay down debt. And finally, we're looking at other opportunities across our platforms in terms of raising capital. And if we do some of that, that will also go down to paying off debt. And so we're not guiding to an actual end-of-year net debt number, but we do have a clear line of sight to continuing to take down debt through FY25.
So would it be fair to say, considering the numbers that you have highlighted, that by the end of FY25, your debt would be below $2 billion? And since you mentioned other capital raising opportunities, what's on the anvil there?
Yeah, so again, we're not going to guide to an actual net debt at the end of the year. But again, if you take our current position, reduce the debt by $300 to $400 million from cash flow from operations, continue to delever through the rights issuance, and then any other opportunity that we can execute next year across the platforms, you could easily see yourself getting to that number that you referenced.
Final question, Mike, due to paucity of time, very quickly, you had the reports we had reported last month about Advanta's IPO. Is there a timeline that you can share on that? Is that on the anvil going forward?
Yeah, no timeline on that. That wasn't our press release, and so somebody else has been speculating on that. Obviously, the Advanta business continues to perform very well. And again, we're going to look at opportunities across all the platforms to see where the best opportunity is to potentially raise capital to continue to pay down debt. So that would be one possible option, but there's other options that we're looking at as well.
Mike Frank, pleasure as always. Thanks a lot for joining in. Wish you good luck for FY25 going forward and for the quarters ahead as well. That was Mike Frank, the CEO of UPL there, saying that the margins will normalize by the second half of FY25 and some challenges for the Brazilian business. And they are expecting some capital raise coming in from the rights issue as well, which is expected to happen by the second or the third quarter of FY25. That was the management of UPL. The stock, though off the highs of the day, just 3.5% higher now at 520. But we'll keep an eye out on UPL. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Your Stocks. Closing bell takes the action forward from me and the team that put this show together. Thank you so much for watching.
Different countries, cricketers from different countries, from different cultures. What is that like, and what is the learning from that experience, Pat?
Oh, it's great. in our team we've got a couple of South Africans, we've got Glenn Phillips from New Zealand, even a couple of coaches have played all around the world. So it's good. I think you realise that people from different cultures might even speak different languages, but kind of when it comes to cricket, everyone's pretty similar.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the one thing everyone bonds over. But even some of the overseas players who we've played for Australia against, sharing some of the stories of the great matches we've played over the years is always a bit of fun as well.
So do you foresee SRH going ahead and winning the IPL this time round?
Of course, that's why we're here. Absolutely.
Is it a gift to self in the birthday month, which is May?
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. Yeah, we've obviously, SRH have won it once before. So first goal is to get to the top 4 and then anything can happen in the finals.
So you are such an inspiration, Pat, and India is a country where cricket is a religion. I believe every nook and corner, even the place that we are sitting in right now, every nook and corner will have an aspiring cricketer to make it to the top 11 in the country. What is your tip to them? What is your formula? What is the Pat Cummins formula to make it to the team?
Well, I think, what I always say is this. We all started playing cricket because we love it, and if you love it, you end up training more, you end up playing better, you play with more freedom, you're not uptight. So I always just say whatever keeps you loving the game of cricket and keeps you playing for those right reasons, I think is going to give you the best chance as well.
उत्तर प्रदेश में आपने अभी कहा कि आप सीटें बढ़ाएंगे पिछली बार से।
उत्तर प्रदेश में सीटें बढ़ाए मतलब अगर सब कुछ अच्छा रहा तो 80 की 80 हो सकती है।
अरे तो बहुत ही बड़ा बयान है। आपका रिकॉर्ड 2014 का ब्रेक होगा जी, 71 और 73
हो सकता है। हम सब कुछ अच्छा रहा तो 80 की 80 भी जीत सकते।
इसका मतलब आप अखिलेश को कन्नौज में हराएंगे, अखिलेश जी को, डिम्पल को मैनपुरी में हराएंगे, उनकी पूरी फैमिली फिरोजाबाद, आजमगढ़।
मैंने संभावना कहा है कि हम 80 की 80 कर सकते हैं। हमारी सीटों की बढ़ोतरी होना निश्चित है।
राहुल गांधी और प्रियंका गांधी जी का कभी हाँ कभी ना, कभी लड़ रहे हैं कभी नहीं लड़ रहे हैं, अभी कुछ सुनने में आ रहा है कि शायद अब नहीं लड़ रहे हैं, इसको कैसे देखते हैं आप?
देखिए, ये लोग आत्मविश्वास गवा बैठे हैं। अपनी पुश्तैनी सीट से भी लड़ने का आत्मविश्वास नहीं है। अगर नहीं लड़ना था तो इतने समय तक सीट क्यों पेंडिंग रखी? किसी कार्यकर्ता को दे देते तो कम से कम वो
Hello and welcome to a fresh new edition of Closing Bell. This is, of course, the last hour of trade this Monday afternoon that's coming up. We are coming to you as always from the CNBCTV18 Motiroswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Rima and Surabhi here, and Nigel is joining in from the newsroom floor. Guys, what a incredibly volatile day, but not very much to show for it at this hour.
I was just about to say, Prashant, I'm almost giddy, almost getting a headache because of the dramatic volatility that we've seen today. But I think the bulls will be happy because at least for now, 1 hour to go. But as of now, good recovery and lots of green on the screen. Guys?
Well, I think we're still pretty much in that range, right? 21,800 on the downside to 22,300 on the upside. But Surabhi, don't get dizzy because we still got 10 sessions to go before we get the verdict. And I think we'll have to see more of the same like we saw in today's session. The big moving factor today is the Nifty Bank. That's up nearly around 600 points from the low point of the day. And that's the swing factor of the day, guys.
No, absolutely. And I think, Nigel, more than 10, right? 10? You mean the election?
4th
sessions.
June. Just 10 sessions.
Yeah.
Till 4th June.
I think around, no, actually it'll be a little more, maybe 15, sorry.
Have I got the date wrong?
Weekend factor. That's the weekend factor. You have to wear off.
15, yeah.
All right, okay. I don't know if it's 15.
And we've got the Saturday working as well this time, so.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
We're going to add that as well. So, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it's been a big swing kind of day for markets, and it's, really, it looked like down and out, 200 points at, within the first hour, 1.5 hours, the Nifty was down 200 points. That's the kind of day we had. And from there was a sharp recovery, which again got sold into, not as sharply as in the morning. And then, of course, now we got this sort of latest move up, which is putting about 40 points on the board for the Nifty. So, you know, the Nifty is basically broken at one point, broken sharply below the trend line support, which stood at 21,980. We easily went 100 points below that particular level, 21,800 something. And then, of course, buying has emerged. The Nifty day low is 21,821. And the Bank Nifty also broke through its own sort of trendline support. And the day low there is 46,983. And one just wonders whether, you know, this phase of selling, we're kind of finished something and we can look forward to maybe a little more stability here. Hopefully that's the case. Pharma metals are doing the best, while auto stocks are under pressure. Political noise, heat, all of that, of course, is really coming in us from all sides. And we play some snippets of that, of sort of various leaders and sort of, you know, what they're doing on the campaign trail, etc. Today, of course, is the fourth phase of the voting. And with today done, almost about 72% of the seats for the Lok Sabha would be done as well. So, you know, it's a big phase with around 96 seats in which polling is happening. Rima.
Hi, so about 15 working days are left, and if you add the Saturday, which is working, we've got about 16 days, trading days to go, before we get the election verdict on the 4th. But just putting some numbers on the kind of intraday recovery that we've seen. The Nifty is now hit 22,100, so that's the level we're currently at. As Prashant pointed out, the low today was 21,821. So from that level, it's been a solid 290-point intraday recovery. So nearly 300 points pullback from the day's low. On the Nifty Midcap Index, it's been an over 1,000 point recovery. The Midcap Index is back in the green. I think it's only the Small Cap Index which is left to get back into the green and recover. It's recovered quite a bit from the day's low, but it's still down close to about 0.4%. And banks now up close to about 300 points, and the Nifty Bank has snapped an 8-day losing streak with the up move today. The big gainers are pharmaceutical. There is that defensive tilt once again, and the numbers adding support to Cipla. So Cipla is now the top gainer on the Nifty. Divi's Laboratories up close to about 3.5%. Throw in a couple of consumption names. The decline in crude prices boding well for Asian Paints. So Asian Paints higher for the second day in a row. You also have strength coming in something like a Britannia. HDFC Bank is looking up today, and HDFC Bank is providing that support. On the way down, Tata Motors, of course, the biggest casualty of the day. Oil marketing companies under pressure. Titan continues to lose ground, and another 1% is gone for Titan. And Titan has now lost close to about 10% since it came out with its numbers.
Absolutely. And Titan is one earning where there's not been much recovery, right? For a lot of other stocks, for instance, Cipla, and we'll talk about the factors there. Obviously, Mr. Umang Vohra clarifying, and soothing some nerves in that investor call. So Cipla has recovered. Asian Paints is seeing recovery. But Titan, no such luck over there. It's probably been one of the most disappointing earnings from the large cap universe in the season gone by. Just very quickly, some interesting stocks to point out. PSU banks are under pressure, and it's a very divergent case between Bank of India and Union Bank of India. And we spoke to both the managements. Now, the market seems to be buying the thesis that Union Bank put out a lot more than what Bank of India put out, though both managements said pretty much the same thing, that the rise in slippages on the agricultural side, that is seasonal in nature. Union Bank is saying their gross NPAs will actually improve. They'll come down this year, something echoed by Bank of India as well. But Bank of India has not recovered. Union Bank is doing better off. Bank of India is still nursing a deep cut of almost 9-10%. So there you go. That's one interesting trend. The other I wanted to point out, look at Siemens. Siemens is surging 7.5% right now, perhaps in anticipation that it can do something which its peer already has. ABB's 11% move is absolutely breathtaking, and we'll discuss this with Vamakshi as we go forward as to what's worked so well. Yes, margins have expanded, but there's clearly something more in that, management commentary, that investor call that the market is like. Massive move on ABB, and that seems to be powering Siemens as well. Other than that, Polycab has been the other, rising star after this quarter's number. 6% on Friday, put up another 4% today. Some very interesting moves in the mid-cap universe is the short point. And then, of course, we'll discuss more stocks. There's Zomato, plenty of others. So while at the headline level, the mid-cap index is flat, just about 0.2% up. These are the individual stories that we are tracking, which look very interesting today. Nigel, over to you.
Well, that's right. Surabhi, I know you listen into the morning chat as well. And last week I was, telling our audience that there was a lot of delivery-based buying that we saw in ABB India. There was long build-up as well in the F&O market. And even after that sort of a build-up ahead of its numbers, the stock is still rallied close to on 10%. Telling you those numbers are absolutely splendid. I think those margins are the highest ever we've seen, with the gross margins at more than 40%. And that's why it's getting a thumbs up, despite it being quite expensive. And what it's done, it's had the rub-off effect. Even Hitachi Energy, as you see, that has moved up by close to 7%. So ABB, Siemens, Hitachi Energy, all of them are running away in today's trading session. So select stocks are doing a thing of their own. Well, Mitesh Thakkar is back with us. Mitesh, well, I think in the morning as well, you had indicated that you won't be convinced with any kind of up move. From the lows, we have seen a bit of a bounce. Is this a good shorting opportunity? If yes, what are the levels you're looking at?
Good afternoon, Nigel. I've been negative for last many days, and we were indicating 21,800 as one of the possible targets. We got a low very close to that, 21,820, and we had some trailing stop losses which have got triggered. But the structure to me remains weak. So I think, this bounce back, possibly the levels which I would watch on the upside would be around 22,200, 22,220. Now, if that is not being crossed and we start filling around those levels again, then I think that will be a good shorting opportunities. Till then, waiting it out. I have one buy and one sell call. On the buying side is Pidilite, which has reversed very nicely in the last 2 days. So buy here with a stop at 29.35 for targets around 30.50. And Tata Motors had a gap down with that result news and the guidance, and still looking negative to me. So that's a sell with a stop at about 980 for targets of 920.
In fact, let's talk a little bit more about Tata Motors. That's the big Nifty loser today after the fourth quarter numbers, the disappointment on JLR margin guidance. Sonia joins us for more. Sonia.
Well, thanks a lot. There are two reasons why Tata Motors is under pressure today. One is that the commentary from the management was very cautious. They speak about how the FY25 EBIT margin guidance for Jaguar Land Rover is flat year on year. So they're not expecting any growth in margins. They also talk about demand headwinds both in the global as well as in the local markets. Apart from that, there are multiple downgrades that have come in on Tata Motors post the numbers because of the kind of price rise that we've seen in the stock. Nomura downgrades Tata Motors to a neutral. They have a target price of 1141. They say that the commercial vehicle growth will be moderate going forward, and JLR could also face demand risks. They say JLR has targeted an EBIT margin of 8.5% in FY25, which is flat year on year, and there are rising risks to the global auto demand. They also talk about how after the run-up, the stock is now in a fair value zone of 5.6 times FY26 EV to EBITDA. Apart from that, Morgan Stanley has downgraded Tata Motors to an equal weight. They have a target price of 1100. They say that Tata Motors, the numbers were good. They have delivered on all fronts. The business is performing well and execution is strong. However, a lot of the good news is priced into the stock, and there is rising competitive intensity in the passenger vehicle business, both on the India EV side as well as Jaguar Land Rover globally.
Thank you very much for that. Gurmeet Chadha is now with us from Complete Circles. Gurmeet, coming on Tata Motors. Now, Tata Motors was the best performing stock last year. It moved up 130, 140%. So it's hard to replicate the kind of performance, that we've seen. But it also appears that a lot of the triggers maybe for Tata Motors could be behind. We've already seen Tata Tech listed. We've seen an improvement in EBIT margins for JLR, and maybe that margin expansion is not going to take place in FY25. The EV cycle, the environment is slowing down. Peers are launching, domestic EV models, so maybe they'll lose market share. What happens to Tata Motors from here on? What are the big triggers according to you?
I think the street got a little, there was touch of disappointment on the guidance more than the numbers. I think numbers also, if you adjust the tax refunds, were a tad lower, and as you rightly said, it's run up, I think almost 8-9 times since COVID. It was in 2-digit, so there's some bit of profit taking there, and it's okay. I mean, if you run up 6-7x in 5 years and it takes 8-10% off, I think it's normal. We've seen that with so many counters, including the really big ones. L&T reported a similar, not comparing again, but had something very similar. My sense is, I think the next trigger is the way they will split the business into two separately between CV and passenger car. They've said that it's going to self-sustain. They've been saying that they are on consolidated basis, they'll be net debt free. So the future triggers would be eventual splitting of two, and then maybe CV business taking over. I don't see any issues in the long run. I think they have the advantage of being the leader in PVs. And I believe that India is in a capex cycle, so I'm not too concerned even on the CV numbers as well. So I'll be a buyer on dips if it probably corrects a little.
Cut that. All right, Gurmeet, you'll be a buyer on dips on Tata Motors. Note at that point. But let's talk about the result of the day. ABB India, it's been a big outperformer in the last 1 year or so. Even year to date, the stock has rallied considerably, and valuations are not cheap. But Vamakshi joins us to tell us about those numbers. Vamakshi, you said it this morning as well. Those numbers were stellar. The margins were the bright spot out there. And the con call as well seems to have met street expectations. Vamakshi, tell us more.
Well, absolutely a very strong set, like you rightly pointed out. It's a beat across all fronts. In fact, revenue came in nearly 7% higher than what we were expecting at 3,080 crores. And this growth in revenue is largely being driven by electrification as well as process automation. In fact, the growth was so strong that it managed to offset the sluggishness that was seen in motion as well as robotics and discrete automation. When we look at the margins as well, EBITDA margins were expected to come by somewhere around 14%, but the margins have posted a very strong beat. They've come in at 18.3%, and in fact, margins in all the segments have actually expanded, barring the robotics segment. And largely, this expansion is not being driven by a one-off, but it is rather being driven by a higher share of service and export revenues, as well as positive price impact, as well as favorable material costs for the company. Overall, net profit is seeing a strong surge of almost 88% on a year-on-year basis. And other than that, when we look at the order inflows, they also appear to be quite healthy, up nearly 15% year-on-year. And in fact, this is the 5th or the 6th consecutive quarter where the company has managed to post an order inflow run rate of almost 3,000 crores. The order backlog for the company has also shot up by almost 25%, and this in turn provides very good revenue visibility for ABB India. Not just that, in the con call that was held today, this morning itself, the company said that the better performance could be attributed to the revenue mix, favorable material costs, and in fact, material costs have softened. New orders will be based on the adjusted prices to account for the fall in the commodity prices. Margins have improved in FY24, and the company aims to not fall below this level. They do not see any impact on the ordering activity from the ongoing elections, and in fact, they see significant private capex picking up in areas like data centers, automation, etc. And in fact, their focus areas, which includes data centers, railways, as well as metro and electronics, are expected to post a growth rate of almost 15% plus. So largely positive commentary coming in from the management. The stock is reacting very positively to those numbers.
Got it. Thanks a lot for that, Vamakshi. Gurmeet, what's your take on this one? ABB. The stock is now an 8,000 rupee stock, up 11% today. Your view?
Stellar set of numbers, Nigel, and despite a very high base, I think what's positive here is the mix. I think the electrification and automation clearly leading the charge, and I think Street was very happy with almost 18% margin. And I think if you see last 2-3 years, they've been improving margins. So there was of late some concern that a lot of the orders were, a bit of a long lead, which had gestation period, and there could be some slowdown on election. We saw some bit of consolidation around March. In fact, the Street said that the long lead orders are almost 15-20%, but I think it's probably defied all of that. And great guidance. I think that's one. Great improvement, great mix, good margins, and then you're guiding again 20-25% on this. This has probably led to this rally. But valuations look very, very stretched, Nigel. Almost 80 times earnings, and I think 40 times EV by EBITDA. I don't know if I can add further on this, but we'll be happy if you get this one at a little discount at the current price.
80 times forward earnings. Huh? We live in an alternate universe, I guess, at least for some of these stocks. But for what it's worth, they're still delivering.
Look at Siemens also today. I mean,
that's
I don't know if it's the Siemens rub, it's the ABB rub-off
effect. That's what Nigel and I were discussing. It's actually Hitachi and Siemens and ABB. I think maybe the market's expecting this kind of strength because, the sectors that they're pointing out, data centers, a couple of other sort of high-tech areas, which is where they're getting a lot of orders. Maybe the market thinks that the others can.
Both of them are up 70% this year. So and the year is, some would argue, just begun, right? We're not even halfway mark, and it's up 70% this year. And of course, I think valuations, you just have to argue which is richer. Gurmeet said 80 times, but yeah, it's somewhere there, 70, 80, 90 times.
I mean, if you'd asked me maybe 7-8 years ago that can you think of a capital goods stock that will be valued at 80 times, I would have said no, but then market is the greatest teacher. We all know that. Gurmeet, let's move on to the other interesting stock this afternoon, and that is UPL. UPL positively surprised the street, I think. The numbers are not as bad as feared. Now they're guiding for 4 to 8% growth on the top line. They're saying there'll be more free cash flow generation. They'll keep paring their debt down. Those were the highlights from the conversation we just had with the management. Now, what do you think of this? Are we at the bottom? Has the worst played out? Would you take a punt over here?
I think UPL had both performance and non-business issues, to be honest, Survi. And I think that's where probably you need, for a re-rating to happen, probably the management needs to demonstrate more on the non-business size. While I agree, in chemicals, I think if you go chemistry-wise, there are certain segments where I think the inventory destocking and the pressure looks like almost reaching the bottom. I think we saw Aarti doing a bit of a turnaround in Q3, even these numbers being a little better. We saw Naveen Fluorine and Fluorination reporting slightly better set of numbers. So if you have if you are a little more patient and you can take further drawdowns because valuations have become reasonable, you can selectively maybe get into the likes of good fluorination companies. Aarti is more benzene and almost 5-6 levels derivative of benzene. Maybe Deepak also. So but as I said, you got to be a little more patient. You probably may have another one more soft quarter before the earnings really start to pick up. But seeing inventory restocking in a lot of sectors, I have a lot of clients we speak to. I think even the end use demand seems to be slightly picking up. So fingers crossed as of now.
Gurmeet, any thoughts on the newest listing, Indegene? It's an interesting company. It's a tech product company which caters to the healthcare companies, the pharmaceutical companies, and it helps them with their sales and marketing, thereby eliminating the need for medical representatives. The financials look good, margins of 17-19%. It's been profitable. The stock is listed well at 30%. Thoughts on Indegene at current levels?
Probably would have listed more had the market sentiment being better. One golden rule is we stay away from businesses we don't understand. I haven't really understood the business model. I'm being very honest. I tried understanding it, but probably didn't get a good first-hand take on it. But it's on our radar. It seems to be a very interesting model, as you rightly said. Moment we get a more, we can grasp it a little better in terms of, end of the day, as a portfolio manager, I need to project earnings over 3-5 years. In this case, I'm unable to do that. Once I do that, probably I'll have a view around this.
Gurmeet, last time we spoke, you highlighted a couple of names. Ganesha Ecosphere was one of them, right? I didn't get a chance then to talk more about this one, but what's the story here?
So what has happened, Prashant, is that there's a government regulation coming up in 2025 where you need to use 25-30% recycled content in PET bottles. And then you also need to do it in MDPs. And, MDPs are used to make drums, which you use for, let's say, paints, oils, etc. Ganesha supplies recycled content and used to food packagers, PET bottles like, let's say, Coke, Varun Beverages, for food packaging companies to Haldirams, etc. of the world. And they also supplies, recycled textile content to textile makers and a lot of applications. Now in rPET, there is a fine of 5 rupees a kg coming next year. And then it goes up to 10 rupees kgs in 6 months and then up to 20-25 rupees a kg. So the annual demand now is almost 4 lakh tons for rPET alone, which is recycled PET. And the current capacity industry is a shade less than 250,000. And Ganesha has almost 140,000 with Warangal unit coming in. So what it does is that it increases the blended margin from, let's say, 11-12% to 14-15% because the new rPET facility would probably be at 20-22%. And then, you see visible growth because there's a lot of demand. And waste management, especially plastic, is a big mess. Our metros are becoming filthy. This is a genuine ESG theme. And they just did a QIP of 500 crores, of which promoters did about 150. My sense is this could be an interesting space to watch. But we are trying to look at some more options. We spoke to Technoplast also, who are into drum making in terms of what the impact on MDPs and all. I'm trying to maybe research more, but as of now, this is the one it caught my attention.
Gurmeet, I wanted to ask you about Polycab. I recall you all had that one. I'm not sure post the bad news what you'll do with those positions, but that one's bounced back. And these numbers look very, very good. Good growth, good margins. They're gaining market share. Valuations at a premium, but maybe rightly so at around 35 times. Your view on the stock at these levels?
No, as Nigel say in cricket, let your bat do the talking. I think that's what the company has done. 25% market share in cables and wires now. And mind you, this is still a very unorganized sector. Possibly they will probably gain more. Good set of margins. I think if you remove a bit of an impairment on FMEG, I think if you can do a good job there, it can transition from a B2B to B2C company. And that's why the market is giving it a multiple it is. Only issue is that I just hope the tax thing is one-off. And I think we don't see incremental impact in terms of fine or penalties, right? I think that we'll get to know as we progress. But, one learning is whether it was Mankind Pharma tax issue post-listing, whether it was Hero Motocorp a year back, whether it was Shree Cement, there's so many issues. I think the core idea is not to react. And fortunately, we did not react. We allowed the event to play out, and I think I'm pretty happy that I think it's played out well for us and for our clients.
All right, Gurmeet. Okay, always a pleasure having you on and getting some perspective. Lots of interesting stocks that we discussed today. Thanks for joining in, and we look forward to the next call soon. Well, on that note, we do have to take a very quick break. On the other side, we'll have Pashupati Advani of Global Foray joining in with some perspective on the market.
ये कंफ्यूजन जो है कहीं न कहीं लैक ऑफ सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस को दिखाता है.
Talking about your book, She'll Never Make It. It aims on, telling people about how to achieve success. So, what inspired you to start and, write about this book?
Like the book says, the book title is She'll Never Make It. And that is something I've heard all throughout my life.
Yeah.
And, Zenia, if I had to ask you this question, I think you might agree. I think women especially in India, I have heard so much of, ye nahi kar payegi. But when I was raising in an investment for my e-commerce startup, and I would be in meetings with investors, they would tell me that I should get a male co-founder, as that would help me raise the funds. That would help me actually secure the investment.
Welcome back. PSU banks on our radar, particularly Union Bank and Bank of India, after reporting their Q4 numbers. We chatted with the managements of both the PSU banks on the outlook for FY25, the outlook on asset quality. Listen into excerpts from that conversation.
Net interest margin, I'm looking at something like 2.8 to 3%. Last year, we gave a guidance of 3%, and I was able to do 3.1. But this year, because we are looking at, probably a rate cut, probably in the second or the third quarter of the year. And so I'm looking at a NIM of about 2.8 to 3%. And credit cost, it had a slightly deteriorated in the last quarter because of course, the slippages. It went up to 0.66. So I'm looking at something less than 1% in the current year with regard to slippages also. The loan growth, we are looking at projections of GDP growth at 7%. Usually the thumb rule is, twice the number or 1.5 times the GDP numbers. So advances growth, I'm looking at 11 to 13% in the current year.
As far as the slippage ratio is concerned, we are targeting a number of around 1.20% for the slippage March 25 slippage ratio. As regards the gross NPA number is concerned, you have seen that the gross NPA has come down from 7% plus to 4.98%. We expect further it should be at around 4% in FY25. So for the guidance for March 25 would be on the deposit side 11 to 12% and advances side 13 to 14%. So the guidance for the financial year 25 is on the net interest margin side is that our net interest margin on a global level should be at around 2.95% and this net interest margin on the domestic side should be at around 3.35%.
Okay, well, that's some banking sort of commentary, banking management commentary. Look at UPL once again, because, the stock had seen a big spike after the numbers, was up about 5%, 5.5%. Then it sold off. And now there is another sort of emergence which has come through. So 532 back on UPL. We'll have more with Hormuz as we go along. The market, of course, is doing much better than mid-afternoon or early morning. We're up full 70 points, which basically puts us at the day's highest point, 22,125 or so. Pashupati Advani is with us of Global Foray. Pashupati, good afternoon. Good to have you with us here. Thank you for your time. Last 5-6 days, actually from the high that we made last Friday, that was the high, a higher high. We've kind of pulled back about 5-6% or so from those levels. What's your sense? We were just joking early on that on the show that there were 15 days to go for the result. If it is politics which is making people a little nervous, there are a few more days of, in that sense, nervousness. What is your own sense and, how the market trades from here?
So actually what I see is that people who believe
that Modi ji is going to come back with a thumping majority have been hopefully buying on dips. The FIIs have been selling slowly. I think one of the reasons why you've had these MNC infrastructure companies go down and come, jump up is probably because they've been sold off, and then after that they've been basically, people are obviously jumping back in. See, I'm a great believer that the infrastructure spend of our government is going to continue, and whichever government is in power, that money is going to continue to be spent, and therefore these infrastructure companies, whether domestic or international, they're going to continue to do well, and that is what we are seeing. Again, India Inc. Has not really doing. They're only just starting to do capex, so then for them to come back in the cycle will take a couple of years for those numbers to pop up. But what is happening is it's putting some pressure on the PSU banks, because there are some banking generally is getting some pushback, as we're seeing in the Nifty Bank Index. And I think that the banks are having to deal with lower NIMs, and as well as some maybe lesser NPAs, but there's still NPAs in the system. So I think that the combination is good. It's the market settling, but the reality is that those who believe that Modi ji is going to come in, and I actually believe that they're going to get a majority, are looking to buy on dips, and it's a great opportunity. And those who believe that Congress is coming in, short the market. So it's a very interesting market trading position, which I guess will go up and down in the next 15 days. And that's good fun for those who are in the middle, who are the traders. Prashant.
As Pashupati, hi, good afternoon. As Nigel is, he's been telling me, listen, don't start getting, dizzy just yet. There's a lot more of this, because there are 15 trading sessions ahead till we get to the final answer. But Pashupati, you were just talking about PSU banks, and for reference, I just want to pull up the one-year chart of the Nifty Bank and the PSU Banking Index. I mean, and the numbers are really a story in themselves. The Nifty Bank is up barely 10% in the last 1 year, and then comes the massive PSU Banking rally, where that index has gained 70%. So 10% of a gain versus 70% of the gain. Now, the reason I'm asking, Pashupati, is because, some of the mid-sized PSU banks, we're seeing very sharp reactions today. Wherever there's a small miss on asset quality, maybe a quarterly rise in slippages, how would you read into this? Would you give some of these PSU banks a free pass? The managements are saying it's a seasonal thing, not much to worry about. Or is this a time for a shift? Offload a bit of the PSU, maybe get back to private?
Obviously, 70% gain means one should offload. The reason why, according to me, the Nifty Bank Index has not really moved is because the two heavyweights which have not moved, one is Kotak and one is HDFC Bank, and those have not really moved with the market. So that's why they've been a drag on the Nifty Bank, because they're a major portion of it. And I think they have seriously underperformed the market, and I think that the consolidation of HDFC Bank into HDFC is going to take time. Yes, it will be a successful merger, but I think it's at least 3 to 4 quarters before you begin to see the synergies. And Kotak is also going through the same thing that probably ICICI went through earlier, which is some curb on new credit card issuance and things like that, while they clean up their technology platforms, which again have come under pressure. So it's good on the one hand. The RBI is holding the big banks down. It's not good for the market. Certainly not good for the bank index. But going back to your original question, I would definitely lighten up on PSU banks, which have had a good run, simply because these misses mean it's a precursor of things to follow. That's my reality.
And what about capital goods names like ABB, Siemens? Earnings is strong. We've seen earnings upgrades, in fact, post ABB's numbers. But the stocks are up 60-70% this year. Valuations are at 80-90 times. What would you do with them? And
so those one has to continue to buy into, because infrastructure spending is coming in huge from the government, and they all are using equipment that is from ABB or from Siemens to make it happen. We banned Chinese imports, so therefore Chinese cannot supply. These guys have come in and stepped in and are supplying, so they're all going to do well. And it's like, you have to take it at my price. It's no longer a Chinese price that is out there that is bringing the cost down along with Chinese quality. So I think it's good for that whole sector of capital goods. Rima?
Hi, Mr. Advani. Good afternoon. Good to see you in. Nigel on this side. Let's get into some spicy stocks. Let's talk about the new age themes. I recall that you were quite positive on Paytm. You got in, you got out at higher levels as well. The stock has got clonked back. So what's the view? It's added on 350 rupees. All the bad news in the price, or there is too much of uncertainty? You'll rather leave that aside. And what about Zomato? They were delivering gold coins, bouquets for Mother's Day. They're going across the spectrum. We have numbers today as well. Any of these two you like?
Again, the Zomato is now part of our lifestyle. I think it's not going to go away. The youth, which are the buying power, is actually full on into the Zomato Swiggy syndrome. So I think Zomato will continue to go up. Unfortunately, I have a small position. I wish I had been a little greedier, but I didn't. I just took a nibble and then it sort of went past me. As you said, I've been in and out of Paytm. I went in at the 400 and something level, so I'm down a little bit. But the reality is that, that's a marketplace, but that's a marketplace without a payment gateway. They're supposed to be tying up with banks, but that tie-up is happening slowly. So they're actually losing their 4 crore FASTag users. They're being shifted to those banks, and I think Paytm is not going to get anything out of them. So that's not good. But, as a platform, Paytm is there. It'll probably get bought by somebody, is what I guess, because without the bank part, it's, it's got like a sort of bandaged leg, if you want to call it. So I think that, it's probably an acquisition target, and the players involved may be quite happy to see it go, because, they have got a lot of value out of it. And, okay, the main promoters invested at higher levels, but he's also made money the first time round. He's only averaged down, so averaged up, I should say. But that's what it is.
Speaking of Zomato, the numbers are coming in. There's a profit. That's number one, 175 crores versus the loss in the same period last year, and the top line has zoomed ahead about 70% higher. Stocks also now getting to the flat line, almost % or so, still negative, but trying to recover. So it's the quick commerce, the quick delivery part of the business that is, the bet for a lot of investors, that could be the driving the next leg of growth. And some, like I think it was Goldman Sachs, was saying that it could be actually worth more than the base food delivery business itself. That's a Blinket for Zomato. Big revenue growth, 72%. We'll try and get Mangalam in with some more analysis on what the other internals have to say. Pashupati, what else? I mean, what else is catching your eye in the mid-cap market of late? Anything in mid-cap IT? Anything else?
So, going back to Zomato for a second, again, China, they used to 4 hours delivery. I think Zomato is making that a reality, because they've got the back end to do it. And as you said, it's like Walmart ended up with PhonePe, and PhonePe ended up being worth quite a significant percentage of what they ended up paying for Flipkart. And likewise, but Zomato, the challenge is, like everything else in this market, buy on rumors, sell on news. The results have come in, they look like good results to me, but the stock looks like it's getting hammered. So it's not, not so great. And they're making profit. I mean, at the end of it all, if you make profit, maybe they've got a margin and they're able to do it. So great for them. I think once the dust settles, it should do better. But right now, the stock is getting hammered like there's no tomorrow. It's crazy.
No.
Another one which is selling off very hard is Syrma. They, I think, reported numbers on Friday, and stocks down 16%, 16.5%, 17% right now on huge volumes. And look at that. I mean, that's again, a player in the EMS space, electronics sort of manufacturing, contract manufacturing, and it's so look at Syrma, and of course look at the leader, which is something like a Dixon. Dixon, of course, does a lot more than what Syrma does now. Although in that space, everyone seems to be doing everything. Dixon is at a new high, and some of the newer entrants in the listed space have not done so well. I mean, Syrma, of course, the high was, I think, almost about 700, and from there it's now under 400. So that is the picture on Syrma post the numbers. That's a very, very sharp cut coming through. Zomato, of course, is also selling off. It's down 5% now nearly. Margins are coming at 2.4%. So, at the margin, the company turning profitable, starting to make money. It's not a very, very new kind of story now. Stocks kind of reacted on that. And of course, now expectations are that now this is going to be a profitable story from here on. So that's one. And of course, we'll have to look at some of the detail in terms of what the expectations were and what they've actually delivered. But going down a little bit more It's down about 6% now, just under 190 rupees or so. Pashupati, great to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us here on CNBC. All right, 30 points on the Nifty. We've given up a little bit on the Nifty as well. So we were up 60, 70 points, and that's about 30, 35 now. 22,090 or so is where the Nifty is trading at. We'll take a break. More on Zomato. Mangalam should be with us with some details there. And we'll, of course, get you some short-term trading ideas with the technical experts as well. Stay with us.
Every point in life I've been told that I'm not enough or my dreams are too big or I won't be able to do it, especially not without a male counterpart. The idea of this book actually came to me first 7 years ago. And finally, the person who brought it to me introduced me to her boss. We were in a meeting. He was a 50-year-old man. And I think this book is almost dedicated to him because he told me 7 years ago that you're never going to make it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He told me that, this seems like a failed attempt because nobody will buy the book. Nobody will buy a book that such a young girl has written. What would she really know about life? And it's been an exciting journey. And that's what the book talks about, it's not a story of success. It's, I don't think this is the connotation that I've made it today. I truly believe that I haven't made it yet. But I think what this book stands to say is that as women, especially today, it doesn't matter what they think or not. Their opinion is irrelevant. And their opinion is something we have to teach ourselves to disregard.
It's more like a lesson.
It's a lesson. It's a lesson in making your own choices and making your own decisions and being able to take that next step forward and keep your blinders on.
Welcome back. Well, Zomato is a stock actually that's moved to the low point of the day. So that's clearly the stock in focus. Looks like it's pre-positioning that's actually resulting in the stock getting clawed back. Mangalam will join us in just a bit. And another stock that's actually moving around in the last few minutes is Lupin. That's moved to the high point of the day. And APL Apollo Tubes as well. First reaction to the numbers was negative. The stock has already corrected 20% from the recent peak. But now that stock has picked up. It's moved into the green as well. Well, Mitesh is back with us. Mitesh, what are the calls you have for us for a buy or sell call for a reverse trade in the coming days?
So, Nigel, you were mentioning Lupin. I have, in fact, picked up Aura Pharma, which is also a stock which is made of fresh high. So, BTST here with a stop at about 1162 and a target of around 1195 can be looked at. And the other one is Page Industries, where I would recommend taking a BTST call with a stop at 34,700 for target, buy call with a stop at 34,700 for targets of 35,650.
All right, got that. Thanks very much. Okay, what has gone so wrong with Zomato? Let's bring in Mangalam. Mangalam, we're scratching our heads over here because even sequentially that profit number has improved at about 175 crores. So what's the issue?
Well, the only issue is that perhaps maybe the street would have expected the growth from last quarter to continue into this quarter. But last quarter is a seasonally strong quarter, that's Q3. Apart from that, there's no real problem that is coming from the overall performance of Zomato. The reason why the stock would perhaps be lower is also because it's rallied over 200% in just the last 12 months. If you just take a look at the numbers that the company has reported, it's a 73% revenue growth that they've reported, 3,562 crores. On the EBITDA front, there is a gain of 86 crores. This compares to the loss of 226 crores. And that was pretty much understandable because, the company has been EBITDA profitable for the last 3 quarters. So the base quarter is the last quarter where the company reported an EBITDA loss. The net profit is 175 crores. Now, you would be, tempted to ask, why is it that the EBITDA is 86 crores and the net profit nearly double of that? That's because Zomato, with the, having around 12,000 crore of cash on their books, also has a large proportion of their earnings coming in from other income. That's about 235 crores, which is a jump of around 37% year on year. In terms of the food business, operating leverage is clearly playing out. Growth in the food business is lower than the overall consolidated revenue growth. That's because it's actually been led by quick commerce. So food delivery growth has come in at around 48% on the top line. The EBIT actually has grown at around 247%. So their margins have improved by nearly 1,000 basis points from 6.9% to about 16.2%. Quick commerce, and here's where the big driver has come in. 111% growth in the company's revenue out there in Blinket. 769 crores is what they've reported on the top line, and they've turned EBIT positive. So from a loss of 179 crores same time last quarter, they've reported a gain of 2 crores, and this is largely in line, in fact slightly better than management estimates of being adjusted EBITDA profitable by the first quarter of FY25 or before that. Well, they've done that before that itself. Hyperpure has seen a revenue doubling, but on the operational front, it's still loss-making, around a 16 crore loss versus a 40 crore loss. But, you know, all the parts are playing well for Zomato, but the food business is growing slightly shy of the overall company's growth, but contributing a lot more to the EBITDA. And the QCOM business is driving the growth with about 112% growth, and now has turned operationally profitable as well. Maybe a bit of profit taking is what we're seeing alongside, you know, the street waiting for the management commentary on the way forward as well. But these numbers not really anything to, you know, suggest there's a big dip in the stock or no operational decay as the numbers are reported.
No, absolutely, yeah. I've noticed that. Glad you pointed that out, Mangalam, that quick commerce has broken even in this quarter. I don't know if you still try and nitpick. I mean, if someone wants to view this sequentially, then the food growth, the food business growth sequentially is actually very flat. They did revenues of about, consolidated revenues of about 1,700 crores on the food business in the December quarter, and they're still around 1,740. So if you want to, you know, quip over something and, you know, sort of nitpick, maybe that could be one reason. Mangalam, your thoughts?
Yeah, that would just be nitpicking, because if you looked at the business sequentially this time around, there is an element of seasonality. You know that October, November, December as a quarter is seasonally stronger than what you see in Jan, Feb, March. And in that, if the food business is actually, you know, the same as what it was in the previous quarter, that's a positive and not necessarily a negative, because it turns out that people are ordering the same amount that they did in the festive season, which is between October and December, as they did in between Jan and March. So that should actually be seen as a positive rather than nitpicking over no sequential growth, especially in the food business, because the element of seasonality out there.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Zomato is up 200% in the last 1 year, and what an incredible investment it's been. Zomato purchased Blinket for $568 million just 2 years ago. And now that's, you know, turned 568, you know, I can see the wonder. And if you just remember, Goldman had valued Blinket at $13 billion. So that's the kind of, you know, re-rating that we've seen in Blinket's value for Zomato.
You know, you'll have the other player very soon in the market also. Swiggy. I mean, their IPO is coming, and so you'll have two. I mean, actually, it's a duopoly mostly. So you'll have both the players, Zomato and Swiggy, which will. Swiggy, of course, also has that Insta sort of, you know,
Instamart.
Instamart, Swiggy Instamart, which is. Which is very much there. Now, you know, UPL is the other one that we've been talking about. It's up 5% after fourth quarter numbers. We had the management earlier. So let's just sort of wrap these numbers up. Hormuz is here with exactly that. Hormuz, the numbers and what the management told you.
You know, surprisingly, it came out as a profit compared to expectations of a net loss. You know, UPL reported a 40 crore profit this quarter compared to expectations of a 360 crore loss. But that is also because there was a one-time component there of 105 crores that contributed to the profit. Excluding that, it's still a loss, but it is still a loss that is lesser than anticipated. So that was one positive. Now, for the debt as well, there was one of the key monitorables to watch out for, because during the December quarter, the management had said that from the current levels of $3.7 billion, they'll bring the debt down to $2.5 billion. They have managed to do that, to bring it down to 2.66 billion as we for at the end of the March quarter. Now for FY25, they're saying that revenue growth will be 4 to 8%, the EBITDA growth will be 6 to 10%, and they're expecting EBITDA on an absolute basis to grow more than 50% in FY25 compared to a year-on-year basis. And they also said when it comes to debt that $300 to $400 million in operating cash flow will be used to pare down the debt. Now we spoke to the management just a few minutes earlier. They said they spoke about the rights issue. Now remember, the rights issue was approved late last year, and now they have shared a timeline that it may happen either in the second or the third quarter of FY25. So that's the timeline they've shared on the rights issue. They said that they'll generate up to $500 million through this rights issue, and that will also be used to further pare down debt, although they did not give an absolute number. But if you take a rough calculation, you'd expect UPL to end FY25 with a net debt less than $2 billion. And also additionally, they said that besides this rights issue, they are also looking at other capital raising opportunities also, although they did not specify which were they, but they are also exploring other opportunities. Now, when it comes to geographies, they said that Latin America is a two-faced story. They said that Brazil continues to destock, but the rest of Latin America will continue to see strong growth in FY25, as has been the case in FY24 as well. Remember, Latin America is the core business for UPL. Almost 40% of their revenue comes from there. So there's strong commentary from Latin America. And for Europe also, they are expecting a strong FY25 from that geography as well, which was impacted partly due to destocking and some rains in FY24. So strong commentary overall from UPL. The stock has been an underperformer this year and as well as over the last 12 months. It has been excluded from the Nifty. It will be interesting to see how the street views this number and this commentary tomorrow morning.
Got it. Thanks a lot for that, Hormuz. Anand Tandon, market expert, joins us on the show. Hi, Anand. Wanted your view on UPL. That's been a rank underperformer, as my colleague Hormuz said. And actually, sometimes when this Nifty rejig happens, some of these stocks do bottom out because there's a lot of selling ahead of that exclusion from the Nifty. And actually, once it's excluded, the stock is up nearly around 10% from there. We had highlighted this on Bazaar as well a few months ago. We said that, normally there is selling ahead of the event, and post the event, actually the stock bottoms out. What's your view on UPL at around 530 rupees?
Well, it hasn't been performing very well either, right? I mean, from a pure performance and earnings point of view, the fact is that it has become an extremely difficult stock to kind of forecast simply because they are now operating in so many countries. And given the state of agriculture everywhere in the world, it is, there will always be some issues in some countries. That said, I think the kind of operational size and kind of depth that they have and the portfolio that they have, it is a company that will come back. So I think at the level that you are talking about right now, despite the small increase that we have seen in price, it is reasonably attractive, assuming that you have the patience to be able to wait for the cycle to turn.
Okay, Anand, the other space which is buzzing, right, is this entire capital goods and equipment manufacturing, Siemens and ABB and BEML and Power India and a bunch of other names as well. So BEML is what we're going to focus on next. Again, fourth quarter numbers came through. Stocks up some 14-15% right now. So let's highlight the numbers with Upasna. Upasna.
Well, the company has reported a good set of numbers and we can clearly see the stock surging on back of the good Q4. Revenue is up almost about 9% on a YoY basis. EBITDA has also seen an uptick of 29% on YoY basis, and margins have expanded sharply, almost 380 basis points at 24.5%. In terms of PAT, the PAT has seen an uptick of almost 64% on YoY basis, around 257 crores. Now, in terms of order book, the company's order book positions as of 31st March stands at 11,872 crores, and out of this, 3,301 crore orders are executable in the current year is what the company has highlighted. What is important to note that in Q4 FY24, the order inflow has continued to remain muted, down almost about 6.3% on YoY basis. In terms of guidance given by the company, mind you, earlier company has given us a guidance of almost 20% revenue growth in FY24, which it clearly didn't achieve, and 20 to 25% revenue growth in FY25 is something we would be watching out for.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anand, BEML, do you like BEML at current levels? And also weigh in on Syrma SGS. Many of these electronic manufacturing company, AMS as we used to bucket them, they were the darlings of the market. But now when you look at Syrma's numbers, margin erosion is quite prevalent. I think for Syrma SGS, the gross margins declined by more than 400 basis points. And the street is a bit concerned about how the product mix will play out. Where do you stand on these electronic manufacturing companies, and do you have a preferred stock there?
Well, most of them are dependent on some form or the other of support from the government. And the margins are so small that it is very difficult unless you have extremely great execution, which some of them have done, but not everybody can do that to be able to make money on a long-term basis. Your size keeps increasing, no doubt, and that's what's been most attractive for the market, because your top line growth is there, and to a large extent you have some kind of a surety that you will be selling because you are selling to on a pre-planned basis. But by and large, the margins don't leave too much on the table. At the end of the day, it's you're an OEM supplier, and you're not going to be able to make exceptional returns. The reason why somebody is giving you those orders is to a large extent because they don't want to do the hassle themselves for the amount of money that they are making out of it. Not a sector that I particularly fancy. As far as your BEML is concerned, it's probably one of the weakest PSU. Nothing great in terms of being able to claim technology or any kind of moat. And as you mentioned yourself, their guidance typically has not been met in terms of how fast they can grow. So while you could argue that it is one of the cheaper ones relative to many of the others, it is also one that has not performed so much. I think if you really need to go into PSUs, it is better to look at those where the product that they sell is so important that you cannot avoid or replace that.
Okay, all right, got that. Anand, stay on. We'll have some more questions for you, but we do have to take a break before that. Come back with more with the news that the market has managed to retain a little bit of that recovery. So we'll be back in the last leg of closing bell in just a minute.
सैम पिट्रोडा जी ने जो है इनहेरिटेंस टैक्स की बात की, जो हम लोगों की जमा पूंजी है, जब हम अपने लोग पूरा बचाते हैं अपने फैमिली के लिए, जब हम उसको अपने आने वाली जनरेशन को देंगे तो उस पर भी टैक्स लगेगा और ये टैक्स बहुत बड़ा टैक्स हो सकता है। तो क्या आप कहेंगे कि बीजेपी अगर आएगी तो इस टैक्स को कभी नहीं लागू करेगी?
भारतीय जनता पार्टी क्या करेगी, हमारे मैनिफेस्टो में साफ हमने लिख करके लाए हुए। अब उन्होंने कहीं सगुफा छोड़ दिया तो मैं भी वो झंडा लेके घूमूंगा, ये सवाल आपके मन में कैसे आ जाता है? भारतीय जनता पार्टी की विचारधारा साफ है जी। हम अपनी विचारधारा के आधार पर कार्यक्रमों को लेकर के, मैनिफेस्टो को लेकर के देश के सामने जाते हैं। कृपा करके ऐसे महाशयों के विचारों को हम पर मत थोपिए भाई।
मोदी जी, राहुल गांधी ने एक बात और कही है, वो कहते हैं कि जब वो सरकार अगर उनकी आएगी तो वो एक नेशनल एक्सरे कराएंगे। इसी से जुड़ा सवाल है, इसीलिए मैं पूछना चाह रहा हूँ, एक नेशनल एक्सरे कराएंगे। बात सिर्फ कास्ट सेंसस की नहीं है जो कि वो करते आए हैं, उस पर भी मैं आपका मत जानना चाहूँगा, मगर बात वो कहते हैं इससे आगे है, बात कास्ट की नहीं, बात जस्टिस की है। और वो कहते हैं कि हम जो है एक सोशियो इकोनॉमिक सर्वे लाएंगे, एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल सर्वे लाएंगे और उसमें देखेंगे कि किसके पास किस जाति और किस उस वर्ग के पास क्या है, कितना धन है, कितनी इंस्टीट्यूशंस में भागीदारी है और उसके बेसिस पर
Welcome back. Well, the markets are holding firm. You know, if in the first hour of trade, someone would have told you that the markets are going to end in the green or 50 points up, you'd have grabbed it with both hands. So I guess the outcome today is pretty positive. The Nifty Bank has recovered close to around 700 points in the low point of the day. And that's the big swing factor. Well, Anand Tandon is still with us. Anand, I wanted to ask you about the space that went through a valuation re-rating and then a de-rating, the diagnostic space. You know, now suddenly the numbers are looking good again. Dr. Lal's is up close to around 10% in just 2 sessions. And the management sounded confident about volume growth. They're saying competitive intensity is, going off a little bit and they're focusing on volumes. And in relation, post these numbers, you have Metropolis as well that's moving up. What's your view on the diagnostic space and any of these stocks you prefer?
So the space itself is interesting largely because you are going to see a continual kind of consolidation going on in the industry, right? That's what's been the major reason for the excitement in the sector. And there is no reason to assume that that will not continue. In fact, as the government becomes more stringent in its guidelines in terms of what is expected from a diagnostic company, and more importantly, as we get into more medical records and so on, which need to be digitized and standardized, it will become more and more difficult for smaller companies to scale and meet all the technology requirements. You are likely to see the consolidation phase playing out. And that is why the larger companies in the industry are certainly worth looking at. The challenge has always been in terms of the valuations. Are you prepared to pay 65 times, 70 times earnings for a business which is essentially, there is no, other than the fact that it is reaching out to the retail, it is fairly sensitive business in terms of the quality of reagents, the amount of time it takes to process, and the impact on the output. So it's a high risk business without necessarily being able to distinguish one from the other. So yes, there are some major pros in it, and therefore at this stage, if we are looking at in terms of the industry, the larger players in the market are probably the best. So companies like Dr. Path Labs, etc., are probably best positioned to be able to take advantage from the consolidation.
Got it. Stick to the larger players. That's the call coming in from Anand. Anand, I also want to ask you about these pipes companies. Companies like APL, Apollo Tubes. They are making those equipments that's going to go, those pipes that go into infra construction. And obviously that's going through a slowdown ahead of general elections. The sentiment itself was a little bit weak, and that's why they pushed through volumes, but it came at the cost of margins. So stocks like APL, Apollo Tubes was down. Now it's recovered from the low point of the day. JTL as well was down more than 10% in the morning. That as well as recovered from the low point of the day. Do you like any of these stocks? APL Apollo obviously is the leader, trades at premium valuations. JTL is the one that got into that controversy because of that preference allotment. That one's going to give good volume growth and valuations are more reasonable. Your view on both these two and the space on the whole?
So, in terms of pipes, I think I prefer those which are more infrastructure driven, like oil and gas, and to some extent water. Those are large government themes. More importantly, oil and gas has gone through a phase of underinvestment. And you can see that many of the companies which are, so these are all obviously high technology pipes, which require understanding of metallurgy as well as being able to create products which are highly regulated because they have to work in high pressure environments. Those are companies where the order books are beginning to look decent, and I think you're beginning to see some of those also move up. The APL type kind of pipe companies are more triggered largely by the real estate kind of development, where I think there are better ways to play it. Now that's not taking away from the fact that obviously APL has done an amazing job in terms of being able to organize the sector, which kind of didn't exist before they were around. But how long that can continue, I have no idea. That's not a sector that I track very closely. And as I said, if you are looking at real estate, well, some of the housing finance companies have also reported very good numbers.
Okay, so housing finance could be one thought. Anand, just your thoughts. I mean, if industrial is a theme that has to be played, then given the run-up in stock prices, what's the best way to play it? I mean, we were just discussing this earlier, this huge reaction on ABB's numbers are good, margins are great, and other MNC industrial stocks like Siemens are running up in anticipation. I mean, Siemens is reporting numbers tomorrow. So do you stick to these winners? Do you look elsewhere? How to play a large industrial, the large industrial theme?
Well, I think the number of stocks that you can look at is fairly low, especially if you're an institutional investor, it is very low, right? I mean, for example, if you were to look at construction and engineering, you have to be buying a Larsen. It doesn't matter what kind of valuation it trades at, simply because there is very little else that you can be buying. With that kind of engineering capability and execution capability, those are one or two of those companies. The same goes with an ABB or a Siemens. I mean, if you're trying to play, for example, security on railways or even high-tech engines and so on, there is not much that you have in terms of choice other than to look at some of these names. Now, the question only is that do you expect really to be able to make serious money on it? And while there is right now a fair amount of euphoria, the thing is that these are cyclical businesses. These require strong capex, and right now, of course, we are at a phase where capex is picking up and has been going on because of the push that the government has initiated. So the order books will look at it and will look very good. But you cannot really, in my view, pay 3 times for the same thing. Once when the order book is announced, 2 when the sales come in, and 3 when the margins expand. They are the same thing. So at some stage, I think you have to kind of put your foot off the pedal and start looking for sectors which are less aggressively priced, because the likelihood of you being able to make serious money on this, to my mind, has become fairly low. So if you're holding on to it as a portfolio allocation, please continue. Fresh money, I think one has to be really careful. It's better to look at sectors which are still emerging or perhaps have not reached that kind of stratospheric valuations.
Quick word, Anand, on L&T. Since we are on the subject, how did you read the margin miss or the miss on the margin guidance?
like I said, I mean, if you were to actually do a DCF or any of that sort, you'll find it difficult to justify the valuation they are trading at. And, this whole idea that somehow there is a historic order book. Well, order book is there and it is historic as soon as it goes past 1 year. So, when we say, oh, it's got 3 years of order book and then turn around and say, oh, there is legacy orders, that's a very strange way of looking at stocks. Obviously, legacy orders will translate into real business today. And, what you're booking today will become legacy tomorrow. So the reality is that, as you go into the international markets, we've seen this before in L&T, right? They had a Middle East problem not 5-6 years ago. If you go back in time, you will see that, they were still running off their order book. And that was one of the reasons why the margins were low. Today, we are exulting because they're getting orders from the Middle East. So, I mean, one has to make up your mind, what do you really want to see? The reality is, as I said, you don't have a choice. If you're an institutional investor, you pretty much need to have L&T in your portfolio and the valuation be damned.
Okay. Well, I think
saying it very emphatically and clearly, right?
That problem that Anand was talking about, I think 10 years back, right? The Middle East issue, etc. Once again, I mean, orders are coming. The problem is margins again. Margins are lower in the international orders, in the Middle East orders, etc. But some of the, the management said upfront cash, etc. That kind of makes up for some of this stuff. But yeah, take your points, Anand. Good conversation as always. Thank you very much for joining us. I think we're going to wrap up the market with what you have, which is about a 65-point pop on the Nifty, 22,120 on the Nifty. So, we started, I think, about 60-70 points lower, then went down 200, and we now end 65 points in the green. So there's great news. And lots of, once again, stock-specific reactions to earnings, right? I mean, that's been the real story. The Bank Nifty ends 0.75% higher. Something very similar happened on the Nifty Bank as well. We end 360 points higher, but at one point we were down very, very sharply. Mid-caps and small caps, small cap index down, mid-cap index up. So that is the indices for you today.
Well, a quick run through of the big movers in the large cap space. Cipla, top Nifty gainer, 6% higher. Asian Paints is moving up higher with the decline we've seen largely in crude oil prices. Adani Group stocks saw buying. A few more, FMCG names like Britannia were higher in trade. Pharma was the top gainer sectorally. The Nifty Pharma index up 1.8%. So Cipla did well, but along with that, Divi's Laboratory, Sun Pharma also higher. On the way down, Tata Motors 8.5%. The street disappointed by the JLR margin guidance. BPCL, NTPC, Coal India, State Bank of India, ONGC. So some of the PSUs still feeling the heat, and Titan, Nestle, ITC in the FMCG pack.
Okay, those are some of the major names on the large cap screen. Beyond the Nifty, I mean, it was really these MNC industrial stocks that were screaming, right at the top of the headline pack. ABB 12%, Hitachi 7.5%, Siemens, which is reporting results tomorrow, 7.5%. So these were big moves that were coming in. BEML from the PSU side actually, really eclipsing everybody else's move, 15% up on BEML. So those are some of the big gainers on the back of results. Otherwise, by the way, the Adani Group has had a decent session today. Adani Enterprises, even Adani Ports on the other stocks did well. BHEL, Polycab, Aurobindo Pharma, PB Fintech. These are some of the other major gainers. Casualties really were some of the PSU banks. Bank of India couldn't really find takers, ending with a cut of almost 10% as the day wraps up. So that was the start of the week. Monday, recovery with the Nifty finally managing to reclaim 22,100. That's a wrap on this edition of Closing Bell. Thank you very much for watching. Do stay tuned. Market Forward comes up next.
सिस्टम को रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेंगे, इसको आप कैसे देखते हैं?
सबसे पहले तो इस देश में जो लोग अपने आप को राजनीति के एक्सपर्ट मानते हैं, जो लोग देश के उतार चढ़ाव को बड़ी बारीकी से अध्ययन करते हैं, सबसे पहले उनका दायित्व है कि वो ऐसे लोगों को पूछे कि जिस परिस्थितियों का वर्णन आप कर रहे हो, अगर ये सही है तो 50, 60, 65 साल तो आपने राज किया भाई। ये मुसीबत के जो जन्मदाता आप हो, और आपने अब तक ये बर्बादी लाई क्यों? पहले उनका जवाब मांगो भाई। नंबर 1। नंबर 2, एक्सरे का मतलब क्या है जी? मतलब हर परिवार में जाना, घर घर छापा मारना, अगर किसी अनाज के डिब्बे में किसी महिला ने अपने गहने छपा के रखे हैं उसको भी एक्सरे किया जाएगा, उनके गहने ले लिए जाएंगे, जमीनों का हिसाब किताब किया जाएगा और फिर उसको रिडिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेंगे। ये दुनिया में एक माओवादी विचार ने सब किया हुआ है, दुनिया बर्बाद हो चुकी है। ये पूरी तरह अर्बन नक्सल उस सोच का सीधा सीधा प्रकटीकरण है और इसलिए मैनिफेस्टो आने के 10 दिन तक बाद भी ये जो जमात आए दिन लिखापट्टी करती है ना, वो चुप रही, उनके प्रोटेक्शन में चुप रही है। तब मिलके मेरी जिम्मेवारी बन जाती है कि देश को जगाना कि भाई देखिए आपको लूटने की ये तरकीब हो रही है। और दूसरा पार्ट है डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी वगैरह, उन्होंने हर बार कहा है कि भाई जो भी संपत्ति होगी इस पर पहला अधिकार किसका होगा। तो हिसाब किताब बहुत साफ है, वो क्या करना चाहते हैं।
मोदी जी, अगर एक सवाल मैं ये समझना चाहूँ कि ये जो तीसरा टर्म होगा आपका, वो पहले दूसरे से अलग कैसे होगा?
पहला कार्यकाल मेरा कैसा गया, तो मैं सामान्य मानवी की जो ज़रूरतें थी उनको मैं एड्रेस करना चाहता था। अब मुझे देश को तीसरी आर्थिक महाशक्ति बनाना है, लेकिन ये जब मैं 11 से 5 पे लाया उसी की कंटिन्यूटी है जी। ये मैं 5 वर्ष और निकम्मा और 3 वाला अच्छा, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता जी। तो पहले मनमोहन सिंह के समय पर 11 तक थे, हम जोर लगा करके 5 पर ले आए, अब जोर लगा करके 3 पर ले जाएंगे। तो हम हर चीज़ में कंटिन्यूटी करना चाहते हैं। अब जैसे बिजली, हमने बिजली पहुंचाने का बड़ा अभियान चलाया, बिजली पहुंचा दी। अब मेरा लक्ष्य है PM सूर्यघर योजना और 0 बिजली बिल, और मैं हर घर पर सोलार सिस्टम लगे, और मैं सिर्फ बिजली का बिल 0 चाहता हूँ, इतना ही, मैं 3 चीज़ें चाहता हूँ। एक, हर परिवार का बिजली का बिल 0 हो।
Sensex and Nifty recover in late trade to end solidly in the green. Financial stocks lead the rally. Volatility index rises 12% to hit the highest level in nearly 2 years.
Tata Motors is the top Nifty loser following a mixed quarterly performance. The management commentary is cautious. They expect no growth in JLR EBITDA margins for FY25. Cipla is a top Nifty gainer as the guidance of 100 basis points margin improvement enthuses the street. The management also guides for a smooth pipeline of drug launches to support growth in the coming years.
Prime Minister Modi says there is no change in the narrative and reiterates that NDA will, and I quote, easily cross the 400 mark. Adds there is no pressure on him and predicts a surprise in Andhra and Telangana. That is a Network 18 exclusive. Hello and welcome to Markets Forward, your go-to program where we aim to get you everything you need, the key data points as you gear up for the next trading session. I'm Prashant, with me, my colleague Reema Tendulkar. Reema, hi.
Hi Prashant, we're going to be with you for the next 20 minutes. We've got you covered with all the big news, the key developments in Dalal Street, top corporate voices and the events to track. But first, the market action, right? All over the place, but the ending was good, in the green.
Yeah, and you know, when you have such big swing days and you're down 200 points and then you see a positive daily close, it sort of, you know, the typical kind of confidence and some hope that maybe you've kind of finished some phase of a correction and now perhaps, you know, there is some stability. So let's see, fingers crossed, right? No one expected the Nifty to be down 200 points in the first hour today, but we had that kind of a day. So it's a big swing day for the market. We broke through those trendline supports, and then, of course, there was a sharp recovery which ensued. That level is 21,930, and we've kind of managed to, for the second day running, defend that particular level. It's not very far away from where we left off, but it's good the way we finally closed. The day low today was 21,821. Remember, the April low was 21,777, so that did not come into view, but we did sort of break this trend line support. Intraday, the Nifty Bank low is 46,983. So now these kind of become, in a way, a bit of a sacrosanct level. Although I would still say 21,930 should be defended if any sort of stability has to emerge here. Capital goods as a sector really saw very strong buying, right? Siemens, ABB, and a bunch of other names as well. You could probably throw in a BEML there as well. But some of this, of course, is results reaction. So, but as a sector, the space did very, very well. Broader markets were a bit more mixed. There were more stocks down than up. The small cap index actually ended down 0.4, 0.5%. Globally, things are all quite okay. It's just that the market here has been very focused on whatever is happening here locally and ignoring what's happening globally. In any case, I mean, the big data point which could really move markets globally is the CPI number out of the US, but that is only on Wednesday. So we'll see. But hopefully, after today's big swing right at the beginning of the week, over the next couple of days, we see a little bit of stability here. Rima.
We'll also watch for the FI number, right? The FIs have been relentlessly selling in the cash market. And today, with the kind of recovery that we've seen intraday, nearly 300 points on the Nifty, and on the Midcap index, it's been a 1,150 point recovery on the Midcap index. The Midcap index was down 950 points at one point of time, and it's finally ended with a gain of close to about 200 points. The advanced decline ratio, though, was still in favor of the losing side. Banks staged a remarkable recovery. The Nifty banking index up 333 points. Autos were the big drag sectorally. The Nifty auto index down 1.5%, courtesy Tata Motors, while pharmaceutical led the rally. Let's dive into the individual stocks. But before that, let's tell you what we have for you. The top movers and shakers of the day with Vivek. The stock of the day undoubtedly was Tata Motors. Zomato lit up the screens. A big move seen in the last 1 hour, and UPL. We'll tell you why these stocks were on our radar. And last but not the least, we delve into the key market events to watch out for. But first, let me go across to Vivek now for the big movers and shakers of the day. Vivek.
Well, thank you so much for that. A sharp intraday recovery, going ahead and ensuring that more gainers than laggards in today's trading session. The first stock on our list was Cipla. Cipla, saw a bit of a sell-off after the Q4 results, but very strong management commentary, especially a positive surprise coming in terms of the margin expansion. The margin range being seen in the range of 24.5% to 25% for FY25. And on the back of that, stock ended at the top, high of the day, one of the top Nifty gainers as well. The second stock, of course, has to be ABB India. Very, very strong set of results. Beat all of the analyst expectations. Very strong commentary as far as the management call too went. And on the back of that, high by 11.5%. And like you mentioned earlier, the entire capital goods pack went up along with ABB India. The other stock on the radar was BEML. Very strong order book coming in this time around. Almost 12,000 crores of order flows that the company has currently. Along with that, in this particular quarter, the margin expansion was over 400 basis points. So that was something aided the 14% up move that we saw in BEML. The other stock on the radar was UPL. Again, a very good set of results, beating most of the street expectations, and also some positive commentary coming in terms of recovery seen in the agrochem space. Company expects margins to normalize from the second half onwards. The stock, back of that, the stock already had around 12%, going into the results in the last 3 trading sessions, saw another 6% up move today. Dr. Lal Path Labs, a very good set of results. Along with that, the company has gone ahead and guided for double-digit revenue growth. Some brokerage upgrades coming in over here. Stock ended higher by almost 6.5%. Also, Polycab India, the numbers came in during market hours on Friday. The stock moved higher on Friday. And today, on the back of upgrades, seeing further follow-on buying, stock ending higher by almost 4.5%. On the other hand, results disappointments were punished quite significantly. Syrma SGS, fourth straight quarter where the company disappointed. Morgan Stanley downgraded the stock almost 17% lower as far as Syrma was concerned. Bank of India, slippage is the only disappointment. Despite a good set of results, stock, ended low quite significantly, almost 10% lower. Tata Motors, muted demand commentary. Some brokerage downgraded the stock, and the stock ended as the top laggard as far as the Nifty was concerned. And lastly, VIP Industries, multiple one-offs but significant margin contraction, and the stock ended lower by over 3%.
Let's invite Anand Tandon and Shilpa Raut, senior analyst at Prabhudas Leeladhar, on the show now. Thank you very much for joining in. Anand, first come in on UPL. What have you made of the Q4 numbers? Now, stock has gone through a rough patch, but do you think the worst is over and perhaps in 1 or 2 quarters, we will start seeing a significant improvement in the numbers? Is the stock a buy at current levels?
Well, stock has fallen quite significantly and therefore may not have that much left on the downside. As you mentioned, the numbers this time were a little better, but not necessarily great because there is still some extraordinary income there. The problem with forecasting performance of UPL is that it operates in so many countries, and you are talking about seasons and weather, which affect its performance, and therefore that's a difficult one that to take. But by the same logic, it also offers some amount of stability, because somewhere in the world they will be doing well if they are doing badly somewhere else, hopefully. So overall, I think at this stage there is not that much downside in UPL, and therefore, to my mind, the upside to downside ratio perhaps is in your favor.
Okay. You know, Anand, hi, Shilpa, hi. We'll sort of pull out some more details on UPL numbers, etc., what the management said with Hormuz in a bit. Shilpa, but comment on the market itself. Do you reckon after the fall we've had, today was significant in any way? There was a big swing, 200 points, and we ended the way we did. So can we expect a little more stability?
Definitely, if you see the FIS data, the net longs, we stand at around 33-34%, so which is quite low. But of course, we have seen that, the net long squeezing into as low as 8 and 9% as well. But this is significantly lower, and from here, any moment, we always expect that a short covering rally resumes. So that is how it was played today, I believe. The levels of 21,700 was defended, which was very critical. We've seen that bounce coming in from these levels time and again, and we've already marched a rally for around 1,000 points. So this is how, if it is playing, then 22,500 to 22,600 zones will be the next levels that we can look forward to, with the stop loss at 21,750 on the downside.
Okay, stay on. Let's talk about Tata Motors. It reported a mixed bag in Q4. Revenues were in line, but the EBITDA margins were a miss. But it's the cautious management commentary which spooked the street. The company is saying that in FY25, JLR margins will not improve further. Multiple downgrades too. Nomura downgraded the stock to a neutral. They say JLR could face demand risks, while Morgan Stanley downgrades it to an equal weight, citing rising competitive intensity in the passenger vehicles business. So that's Tata Motors for you. Anand, how is the risk reward in Tata Motors after the kind of return it's given shareholders in the last 1 year?
So, I think the answer is very clear. It has done exceedingly well. And if the management is now saying that they may not be able to make a great grow at increasing margins, that you should be read as saying that the margins will be under pressure, and you may actually find it coming down. If you want to look at the commentary that is happening from auto companies around the globe, that is pretty much the same kind of story that you are seeing. Many of the global companies also have kind of sounded the alarm in terms of being able to say that the growth is not as aggressive as they might have hoped for. Overall, Tata Motors is still very much a global story rather than a domestic story. And the kind of valuation you are at, I think, I would kind of agree with. I think Motilal put out a report saying the best is over. I would tend to agree with that.
Is on the charts, Shilpa, anything on Tata Motors?
Definitely, Tata Motors, we have seen, the stock, of course, because of the downgrades and all, it has come down. But this correction towards 920 can be a good thing to go long again in the stock, keep a stop loss of around 880. I believe then some sort of consolidation can happen, and this phase you should again go long for targets of 1,000 and above.
Okay, well, the next one is ABB, right? Big move. It's up 70% this year. And of course, this was on the back of a very strong set of numbers for the first quarter. The company's revenue growth was driven by electrification and process automation segments. Vamakshi is here to wrap up the results for us. Vamakshi, over to you.
Well, absolutely a strong set that came through from ABB India. It was a beat across all fronts. When we look at the revenue, it came in nearly 7% higher than what we were expecting. Like you rightly pointed out, this growth is largely being led by the electrification and process automation business. The margins also were expected at somewhere around 14%, and margins have, in fact, it's a significant beat as far as margins are concerned. They've come in at almost 18.3%. Barring robotics, margins have expanded for all segments. Now, when we look at the net net profit, it has seen an 88% surge on a year-on-year basis, coming in at almost 460 odd crores. The order inflow is looking quite healthy as well. It's up almost 15% year-on-year, and the order backlog was also up almost 25% at 8,935 crores, and this in turn provides very strong revenue visibility for the company. Apart from that, in the con call, the company said that there were no one-offs in the Q1 performance. The better performance was largely attributed towards better revenue mix, favorable material costs, and they believe that going forward there will be a good growth coming in as far as capex is concerned, especially in areas like data centers, automation. In fact, data centers, railways and metro as well as electronics, these are some of the focus areas for the company, and they have highlighted that these segments could actually witness growth of almost 15% plus. So overall, good set of numbers. We also had two brokerage reports come in. UBS raised its target price to 8,830 and Jefferies raised its target price to 8,845 rupees per share. So overall, a good set. The stock a surge in trade today.
UBS values ABB at 75 times forward multiple when it ascribes the target price of 8,800. Thank you, Mamakshi, for joining in. Let's talk about Cipla. Came out with numbers on Friday during market hours, but post that, we chatted with the management. There was a conference call. Ekta joins in with the details. Ekta.
Thanks for that. Well, one of the key things about Cipla this time round was the margin guidance. So they have said that the margins will improve to 24.5% to 25.5% for FY25, which is an improvement of 100 basis points year on year. Separately, cash deployment to be used towards M&A as well as increased payout to investors. They are open to a large acquisition in India. India and South Africa would be key geographies which would be key growth drivers. They've completed the remediation of Goa and the remediation of Indore is underway. The Abrixon generic launch, which is a cancer drug, is expected in late FY25 now. They are optimistic of growing the US business over the current base of $900 million and aim to launch 4 peptide assets, which is a type of drug, in FY25. JP Morgan, overweight, they've raised the target price to 1540. They continue to like Cipla and they were positive about the EBITDA margin guidance as well. Jefferies too, they said the company did not provide a sales guidance, but the margin guidance was higher by 180 basis points at a midpoint than previous estimates. Citi has a buy, target price 1650. They said that the margin guidance was better than expectations of a flattish trend. HSBC and Kotak both have a buy, and Kotak has retained its ad, and both seem to be optimistic on the margin guidance for Cipla as well.
All right, Ekta, thank you very much for that. Actually, pharma as a space did quite well today. There was also the other mover, results-based reaction, which was Piramal Pharma. Piramal Pharma, of course, spiked up sharply, although ended only with a 2% gain. The high there was 166, ended at about 153 rupees or so. But there was Cipla, but there were also other moves, right? Lupin was up about 4.5%. Aurobindo was up 4.6%. Gland, Divi's, Abbott India, Granules, and a bunch of others as well. So as a sector, the space did very well. Any thoughts, Anand, here? Anything you like in the space?
Well, generally the sector is doing well. The US market is doing well again after a long time, and the Indian market continues to grow at small double-digit kind of growth, which is pretty much par for the course. So the delta that you are really getting is from the overseas markets, and given the fact that, as I mentioned, those countries are delivering good revenues for the Indian API manufacturers and the ones that are selling overseas, I think overall it's a decent space to be in, relatively not that expensive. If you look at the industry, P itself is around 26, which is just marginally higher than what the market is at overall. So I would argue that this is perhaps a place that one could still hide. Not that they are particularly cheap in context of where they have been, but overall I would be looking at those companies which have got a good overseas regulated market portfolio and stick with that.
Okay, let's talk about UPL. That also reacted positively to its numbers. Hormus joins in with the management commentary. Hormus.
Two main things that you're watching out for when it comes to UPL. One was the guidance for FY25 and the other one was the debt picture. Now, when it comes to the guidance, the company said that revenue growth will be between 4 to 8% for FY25. Remember, they ended FY24 with a decline of 20%. When it comes to the top line, EBITDA growth is expected to be between 6 to 10%. So that is the guidance that the management gave. On the debt front, at the end of Q3, they had said that from from 3.7 billion. They'll bring the net debt down to 2.5 billion. They've managed to bring that down to 2.66 billion as well. So another positive there coming in from the debt reduction perspective. They also said that EBITDA in FY25 on an absolute basis may grow more than 50%. Now also the $300 to $400 million that they would generate in operating cash flow during FY25 would be used to pare down debt. The management also said when it comes to the rights issue that it will be held either during Q2 or Q3 of FY25, and they aim to raise up to 500 million through this rights issue, which will also be used to pare down debt further. And they also said that they are also looking at other opportunities to raise funds besides the rights issue. When it comes to geographies, the Latin American business, which is the core for UPL, almost 40% of their top line comes from there. They said that Brazil as a business continues to face challenges, but the rest of Latin America will see strong growth in FY25 as well as they saw in FY24. And lastly, they are also expecting a strong year from Europe in FY25. So the stock ending 7.5% higher. It'll be interesting to see how analysts view these numbers and the management commentary. Back to you.
Thank you very much for that. And the other stock of interest today was Zomato. Good set of numbers. And the key highlight is that Blinket has turned EBITDA positive in the quarter gone by. Mangalam joins in. Mangalam.
Well, you know, as valuations of Zomato increase, people are valuing Blinket more than Zomato itself. The attention has moved to Blinket as well. The headline for Zomato's fourth quarter numbers was Blinket has turned EBITDA positive. The management had given guidance of it turning EBITDA positive on or before the first quarter of FY25, and it's done it one quarter before that itself. Overall as well, the numbers weren't bad. The revenues grew 73% year on year. The EBITDA came in at an 86 crore gain versus a loss of 226 crores. And on the bottom line, the company reported a profit of 175 crores versus a loss of 188 crores as well. Food delivery, the revenues grew by 48%. The food delivery EBIT actually jumped by 247%, and that's reflective in the margin improvement there as well at around 16%. But the highlight was Blinket, where the revenues grew about 111%. They reported an EBIT gain of about 2 crores, and this compares to the loss of 179 crores. Importantly, the management has spoken about aggressive growth plans for Blinket itself. They're aiming for 1,000 quick commerce stores as against 526 right now. And this 1,000 comes by the end of this fiscal itself, 100 stores of which will be added in the first quarter itself. Over the next few quarters, because of this expansion, maybe Blinket EBITDA margin would be near zero. But on a steady state basis, they've targeted 4 to 5% margins. And for a company that has seen a share price move of over 200% in the last 12 months, they have cash of about 12,000 crores on their books as well.
All right, Mangalam, thanks very much for that. So it's done phenomenally well, right? And, you know, maybe today, after the numbers, and maybe, you know, sometimes what happens is during the day of the result, stock, by the way, sank 6%. It ended about 3.5% lower. But the next day is another day. Anand, any thoughts, Zomato? By the way, the other one with the rest of the market, the food delivery business, Swiggy is also coming up with an IPO. So, you know, investors will have a choice like consumers do. Your thoughts on Zomato?
Well, so the question really is that, you know, the delivery business, so the food part, at least you have a very strong margin, right? Because you're getting a share from the seller as well as the fact that you're charging platform fees and so on. The kind of margin that you make in Blinket it is a lot different. You're not going to be able to charge for what product you're producing. So it's mostly a courier business for all practical purposes, and that too fairly stiff target of being able to deliver very quickly. What would be the steady state margin, to my mind, is what you are really targeting for, and the kind of earnings that you would be able to get in a steady state. Right now, of course, because of the fact that it is growing, people are willing to pay all kinds of price for it because the numbers will continue to rapidly increase. But if you were to then step back and look at what, for example, some of the logistics companies earn, I think there will be some level of reality check there that one needs to be putting in. So currently, for the moment, I think the best way to do is to ride the stock. There is no doubt their execution capabilities have been well proven, but I'm not necessarily very gung-ho about the kind of overall valuations that one can sustain in Zomato at this stage.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa and Anand, for joining us today on our show, Markets Forward. We need to get into a break. On the other side, the top corporate voices along with the key events to watch out for. Stay tuned.
अतिरिक्त बिजली जो हो वो बेचे, कमाई करे। तीसरा, जमाना इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल का आएगा। मुझे आत्मनिर्भर होना है एनर्जी के सेक्टर में। और इसलिए मैं चाहूँगा जिसके पास भी स्कूटी हो, मोटर हो, जो भी हो, उसका चार्जिंग अपने घर में ही हो जाए और सोलार से हो जाए। मतलब आज उसका जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का महीने का 1000-2000 रुपया खर्चा आता है वो भी जीरो हो जाए। ये त्रिविध बेनिफिट नागरिक को और देश को, पर्यावरण का बेनिफिट, देश को आज पेट्रोलियम इंपोर्ट करने का जो अरबों डॉलर जा रहे हैं बाहर वो बंद हो जाएगा। तो मल्टीपल बेनिफिट वाला योजना, अब जैसे स्टार्टअप हब, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाना है।
Welcome back. You're with us here on Markets Forward. Let's get you a sampling of the kind of corporate voices that we had on the channel through the course of the day. Of course, a lot of it is earnings related. We're still in the midst of the earnings season. Polycab, the stock did very well on Friday and of course today as well. We spoke with the management and they told us that they are running ahead of what they had put up for themselves as their guidance for FY26. Their aim was to do 20,000 crores of revenues in FY26. And they said that, well, they've already done 18,000 crores in FY24. They did not put out a guidance for FY25, but they said they're running well ahead of, that stated guidance. I mean, most likely that should be achievable in 25 itself. They did, though, guide on margins. They said that 12 to 13% EBITDA margins are possible. Their market share, of course, has been expanding, which now stands at between 25 and 26% as compared to 22 to 23% earlier.
Okay, the other company on our radar today was Dr. Lal Path Labs. The company is confident of sustaining 26% EBITDA margins in FY25. They also aim to beat the FY24 revenue growth of 11%. The management reiterated the thrust on volumes while not planning any price increases.
Well, the other one from the chemical space was Aarti Industries. The management is maintaining its FY25 EBITDA guidance of between 1,450 crores and 1,700 crore rupees, and it is targeting this to be volume-led, both on the discretionary and the non-discretionary segments. They're saying volumes this year could grow between 20 and 30%. The management also said that things will keep getting better every quarter, and that's how they plan to hit that stated guidance.
And finally, Bank of India management said that the rise in Q4 slippages was largely on account of an increase in the agri and MSME loans. But the management did say that the slippage ratio will come down to 1.2% next year, and even the gross NPAs, which were at 5% in the current quarter, will decline to 4% by the end of next year. They've also guided for a deposit growth of 11 to 12% and an advances growth of 13 to 14%.
All right, well, lots to track, lots of corporate voices there. But before we sort of wrap up on this program, as always, let's get you some of the key events to watch out for as we come back tomorrow. Mangalam is here with that. Mangalam.
Well, we're still in the thick of results season, so a bunch of results tomorrow. From the Nifty pack, we have Bharti Airtel reporting their numbers, and then from the important stocks standpoint, we'll watch out for Siemens, Colgate Palmolive, and Shree Cement as well. Siemens was a big gainer in today's trading session. Then there is, of course, the Nifty Financial Services weekly options expiry that plays out tomorrow. HDFC Bank will be an important one to watch out today as well, led the recovery today. But tomorrow there is a press conference to, announce the launch of a new offering. What that offering is and whether it can rev up growth or not is something that we'll be keeping an eye out on. India macro data, we have the April WPI at noon tomorrow. But more importantly, everyone will be watching out for the US Purchasers Price Index, or US equivalent of a WPI in the evening. Thereafter, there would be the CPI day after. But for tomorrow, the PPI will give a direction into where inflation in the US is headed.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And with that, it's a wrap on Markets Forward. Thank you for watching.
इनोवेशन हब बनाना है, यानी मैं एक बिल्कुल नए एरिया पर देश को ले जाना चाहता हूँ और बड़े कॉन्फिडेंस का, और विजन मेरा क्लियर है, मुझे कोई दुविधा नहीं, मेरे पास बताया है नेक्स्ट 100 डेज में 4 जून के बाद 100 डेज में मुझे क्या काम करना है, अभी से मेरे पास क्लियर है। 5 साल में क्या करना है क्लियर है, 2047 में विकसित भारत बने क्लियर है। इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ 24/7 फॉर 2047, ये मेरा मिजाज है।
Make informed decisions with comprehensive analysis on the go.
Strengthen your portfolio with real-time market updates on the go. Create effective strategies with insightful expert opinions on the go.
Grow on the go with CNBC TV18, now streaming live 24/7 on YouTube.
CNBC TV18's most comprehensive and award-winning news show, India Business Hour, drops first on YouTube. Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening: 96 constituencies across 10 states and union territories vote in the fourth phase of the Lok Sabha elections. Brisk polling in West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh and UP. The turnout is relatively low across Bihar and Orissa. It's the final battle in South India as Andhra Pradesh and Telangana go to the polls. Andhra is also voting in the state assembly elections where Jagan Reddy is seeking a second term as chief minister. BJP candidate in Hyderabad gets booked after she's caught on video asking burqa-clad women to lift their veil at a polling booth. YSRCP MLA is also caught on video slapping a voter who retaliates. Akhilesh Yadav fights to retain the Samajwadi Party's bastion as 13 seats in UP go to the polls. Sporadic violence reported in West Bengal, where former cricketer Yusuf Pathan is contesting on a Trinamool ticket against State Congress President Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. Trinamool leader Mahua Moitra, who was recently expelled from Parliament, is fighting from Krishnanagar. Prime Minister Modi says there is no change in the narrative and reiterates that NDA will easily cross the 400 mark, adds there is no pressure on him, predicts a surprise in Andhra and Telangana. That's a Network 18 exclusive. The Sensex and the Nifty recover in late trade, ending in the green. Financial stocks lead the rally. Volatility index rises 12%, hitting the highest level in nearly 2 years. SoftBank's Vision Fund posts its first annual profit in 3 years. The flagship tech investment arm gained $4.6 billion, but overall, SoftBank reports a loss for the third straight year, losing $1.5 billion. Zomato delivers in Q4 with a revenue growth of 73%, also reports a profit of 175 crore rupees, compared to a loss of nearly 190 crores year-on-year. Quick commerce arm Blinket's revenue almost doubled to 950 crores. Thousands take to the streets of Israel amidst anger against Prime Minister Netanyahu over hostages held in Gaza. The war continues to rage as Israel bombs parts of northern Gaza. Just days after assuming office for a fifth term in Russia, Vladimir Putin removes his long-time ally Sergei Shoigu as defense minister. This is the most significant reshuffle in military command since Russia invaded Ukraine more than 2 years ago. India expects a long-term arrangement with Iran on the Chabahar port, which will connect India with Russia via Iran. External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar says Union Ports Minister Sarbanand Sonowal is travelling to Iran to seal the agreement. 96 constituencies across 9 states and the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir voting today in Phase 4 of the Lok Sabha elections. This will be the final battle in South India, with both Andhra Pradesh and Telangana voting today. Voters in Andhra have also voted for the State Assembly. Jagan Reddy seeking a second term as Chief Minister. All 25 Lok Sabha seats in Andhra and 17 seats in Telangana are voting today. The polling has been relatively brisk, with turnout crossing 50% in both states as of 3 p.m. In Hyderabad, the BJP candidate Madhavi Latha has been booked by authorities after being caught on video asking burqa-clad women to lift their veil. A case was registered against her after complaints came in from opposition parties. The incident happened at a polling booth under the glare of the police and election officials. Incidents of sporadic violence being reported from Andhra Pradesh. A sitting MLA of the YSR Congress party has been caught on camera slapping a voter who was allegedly complaining about the MLA not standing in queue. The voter can be seen retaliating against the MLA, when his supporters attacked him. Jude Sane joins us now from Hyderabad doing more on the battle for Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Jude, high-stakes battle. The BJP is hoping that they will be able to turn things around in their favour in the south, including in both these states. What's the sense that you get on the enthusiasm, the voter turnout and the issues that are driving the voters to the booths?
Well, a high-stakes battle, no doubt, but more so in Andhra Pradesh, where the stakes are higher simply because there's an assembly election in the fray as well. So 175 seats in the assembly, 25 seats as far as Lok Sabha parliamentary constituencies are concerned is pretty much what's on offer. Remember, it's also a bit of an alliance arithmetic that's done the rounds in Andhra, given that the TDP's Chandrababu Naidu has allied with not just the BJP, but also with, Pawan Kalyan's party, that's the Janasena party, even as Jagan Mohan Reddy is seeking a second successive term as Chief Minister of the state in, of course, that re-election attempt. Well, interesting issues really, but the one that will continue to do the rounds, apart from infrastructure and development, is the issue of a state capital in Andhra. Remember, it was Amravati for the longest time when Chandrababu Naidu was at the helm at the TDP. Jagan undid a fair bit of that, and as of now, the state of Andhra does not quite have one capital city, and that's what both the BJP and the TDP have been going on about in their election campaigns. However, the Jagan Mohan Reddy-led YSR Congress party has been talking about welfare spending, social welfare measures, social spending, and key infrastructure or key policy issues in areas like agriculture, education, investment, and infrastructure. So it's a toss-up between both these combines, even as Jagan Reddy is also seeking a second term as Chief Minister in the state of Andhra. Over to Telangana, I'm coming to you, of course, from Hyderabad, which is also seeing a high-stakes battle simply because it's 17 seats on offer. Remember, 4 lakh voters in Andhra, 4 crore voters in Andhra, a little over 3 crore in Telangana, and there are issues aplenty here as well. For a start, the BJP's Madhavi Latha, of course, recently embroiled in a controversy there while asking burqa-clad women to reveal their faces, is trying to take on the might of the Owaisis. Remember, Asaduddin Owaisi has held the Hyderabad seat for nearly 2 decades now and is being seen as meeting his challenge in the BJP's Madhavi Latha. In Secunderabad as well, it's a seat that the BJP has held for 2 successive terms, but Kishan Reddy is, of course, trying to reinstate or retain that seat for the party. And the issues here, interestingly enough, apart from development, infrastructure, is also religious polarization. And a number of young voters we spoke to a little early in the day said jobs is something that they're looking out for even as they make the decision in the polling booth as well. Remember, there's a new demographic that's going to the polls in both these states, younger voters who have made their debuts, so to speak, recently. And so jobs is a critical issue that these voters are contending with in the poll booths. But interestingly, a few seats in focus in Telangana, seats like Warangal, seats like Karimnagar. Remember, these are constituencies that have perhaps, some might argue, not seen as much attention, given that Hyderabad has seen so much focus ever since statehood in 2013-2014. So it's a multi-cornered contest here as well between the BJP, between the BRS and the Congress. But the fact is that election issues, so to speak, are aplenty. In fact, we spoke to Kishan Reddy of the BJP and, of course, K.T. Ramarao of the BRS after they cast their votes. Let's listen into what both gentlemen had to say.
I think 5 months ago when we were voted out,
People did want a change, but now I think they've realized that they've been hoodwinked and they've been cheated by Congress. 10 years ago, a big man had cheated them across the nation. So I think the only party that really symbolizes the aspirations and is closer to the aspirations of people of Telangana is BRS.
मैं सभी लोगों से यही प्रार्थना करता हूँ, ये प्रजातंत्र में सबसे बड़ा दुनिया का बड़ा देश है, उस देश का चुनाव हो रहा है, इसलिए मैं सभी लोगों से प्रार्थना करता हूँ घर से बाहर निकलकर आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी बार बार बोलते हैं ये प्रजातंत्र का त्योहार है, फेस्टिवल ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, इसमें सभी लोग भागीदार होना चाहिए, वोट डालना चाहिए, सभी लोगों से मैं अपील करता हूँ.
All right, Jude, many thanks for joining us. Jude reporting there from Telangana, capturing the mood across Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, two crucial southern states. In the Hindi heartland, 26 constituencies are voting across Madhya Pradesh, UP, Bihar. The Samajwadi Party in UP is fighting to retain its bastion with Akhilesh Yadav and Dimple Yadav in the fray. In MP, 8 constituencies, including Indore, voting today. The Congress candidate has withdrawn from Indore. The party has been asking Indore citizens to vote Nota. In Bihar, 5 seats voting today. Santya joins us now from Samastipur. Santya, take us through what the polling looks like in Bihar.
So, Shireen, in Bihar, polling is underway on 5 seats. That's Samastipur. I'm coming to you from Samastipur. Other than Samastipur, it's Begusarai, Munger, Darbhanga and Ujiarpur. Now, talking about the election issues and specifically Bihar, for Bihar, unemployment, inflation, these two are going to be extremely important election issues. Agniveer scheme is also going to be play a crucial role, not specifically in the seats which are going to polls today, but if I talk about these seats, unemployment, availability of clean drinking water, and law and order situation and inflation are key election issues. Modi factor, nationalism and Hindutva also are going to play a crucial role. But we are talking about Bihar where caste dynamics still dominates all the other issues. So it's all about which candidate belongs to what caste, and that's exactly what both the sides, both India Alliance and NDA has kept in mind. Talking about the big ticket, the key candidates here, I would like to start with Ujiarpur, 2 times sitting MP, also MOS home, Nityanand Rai once again is contesting on a BJP ticket. He is facing India Alliance's Alok Mehta. Right now I'm in Samastipur, and both the candidates of candidates of both India Alliance and NDA, that is of Shambhavi Chaudhary is from NDA Alliance, she's from LGP, and Congress's Sunny Hazari. Both these candidates actually are children of JDU leaders. For Sunny Hazari, because he is in the Congress camp, his father, who is with JDU, did not even campaign for him. But on the other side, for Shambhavi Chaudhary, her father, Ashok Chaudhary, continuously campaigned for her. So these are important tickets and seats. Another important seat I want to talk about is Begusarai. In 2019, Begusarai, the competition was between then CPI candidate Kanhaiya Kumar, the former student union president of JNU, and Giriraj Singh. Giriraj Singh won Begusarai in 2019 with a massive margin of over 4 lakh votes. But Giriraj Singh is also somebody who is infamous for his multiple and extremely communal and divisive statements. And that's exactly one of the reasons why there's huge anti-incumbency against Giriraj Singh this time in Begusarai. And that's why we have seen that in multiple rallies and multiple speeches, Giriraj Singh has sought vote in PM Modi's name. He in fact apologized for his statements, and he said that, and I quote him, that हमारे किए की गलती, हमारे किए की सजा मोदी जी को मत दीजिएगा, मोदी जी की खातिर वोट कीजिएगा. So clearly he invoked PM Modi's name in almost every speech he made. In fact, earlier in the day, CNBC TV18 spoke to Kanhaiya Kumar, who was last time CPI candidate and lost to Giriraj Singh, but this time he's contesting from Northeast Delhi. He came to Begusarai to cast his vote as he belongs to this place. In a conversation to CNBC TV18, he mentioned that the combined strength of India Alliance is going to ensure that they emerge victorious. Listen in.
As a voter, हम बोलें तो मुद्दे तो वही के वही हैं. अभी मैं रास्ते से आ रहा था पटना से, दावा किया जा रहा था तो अगली बार चुनाव से पहले जो है वो 4 लेन का काम कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. वो काम कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है. आप भी आते होंगे पटना से तो आप देखे होंगे कि सड़कें,
मैं पहली बार इस तरफ आई हूँ एक्चुअली.
नहीं, आप बेगूसराय जब आए होंगे पटना से तो कहीं भी जो है काम कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है. और दूसरा पिछली बार जो हम लोग एजेंडे में लोगों से बात करके जो मुद्दे बेगूसराय के लिए उठाए थे, उसमें से एक भी मुद्दे पे कोई काम नहीं हुआ है।
Well, Kanhaiya Kumar contesting from Delhi on a Congress ticket, but voting in Begusarai. That's where he is listed on the voter roll. Santya reporting from Bihar. Many thanks for joining us, Santya. From Bihar to West Bengal, where 8 seats are going to the poll in Phase 4. In 2019, the Trinamool Congress won 4 of these seats. BJP won 3 and the Congress got 1. The high-voltage election in Bengal is seeing some pitched battles. One such battle is taking place in Krishnanagar between Trinamool Congress leader Mahua Moitra and BJP's Amrita Roy. Remember, Moitra was recently expelled from Parliament. The other battle, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, the only Congress MP from Bengal, facing a tough fight from former cricketer Yusuf Pathan, who's contesting on a Trinamool ticket. The BJP's Nirmal Kumar Saha also in the fray. Adhir Ranjan seeking to win his 4th consecutive Lok Sabha election. Sporadic violence being reported in some parts of the state today.
हम जीतेगी, इसमें कोई हमें कोई इसमें परेशान नहीं है, शंका भी नहीं है मुझे, बिल्कुल मैं कॉन्फिडेंट हूँ। अभी तक 2-4 आइसोलेटेड घटना घटी है, जैसे कि बड़ुआ की खरजुना जहाँ घटी है बेलडंगा में, हम लोग भी शिकायत दर्ज कर रहे हैं, लेकिन मैं ये नहीं कहता कि बहुत बड़े कुछ घटना घट चुके हैं, लेकिन 4-5 जगह हो रहे हैं। मेरे साथ लड़ाई, मैं TM70 और TMC पार्टी की और बीजेपी पार्टी के, मैं किसी व्यक्ति के साथ मेरा कोई लड़ाई नहीं है, लेकिन यूसुफ मतलब पठान को बेकार यहाँ खड़ा कर दिए गए।
Well, that is Bengal. In Odisha, the state voting for 4 Lok Sabha seats and 28 assembly constituencies. Naveen Patnaik-led Biju Janata Dal trying to retain power in the state with the 6th straight term for the chief minister. The fight is for 147 assembly seats that will be voting in 4 phases, with the first phase starting today. The BJP is hoping to form a government in the state for the first time on its own. The state has 21 parliamentary seats, and the 4 seats voting today were won by the BJP in 2019. From Odisha to Maharashtra, where 11 constituencies vote in the 4th phase, 41 candidates in the fray in the highly contested battle for Bid. Pankaja Munde, daughter of late BJP stalwart Gopinath Munde, is facing Bajrang Sonvane of the Nationalist Congress Party led by Sharad Pawar. News 18's Mayuresh Ganpathya has more. Mayuresh.
The scorching heat, especially in a district like Bid, is a cause of concern for lower turnout. But if we talk about the entire Maharashtra, till 3 p.m. in this particular phase, it has crossed 30%, and everyone is expecting that it should at least cross 60 to 65% in this particular phase. So it would be interesting to see that how much voter turnout exactly happens. That exact details will come to know post 7 p.m. But if we talk about the interesting or key fight, especially in this 4th phase, it is in this particular constituency called Bid, where Pankaja Munde is contesting her first Lok Sabha election. As we all know, Pankaja was a former cabinet minister in the state government, but this is her first election which she is contesting, and she has been challenged by Bajrang Sonavane of NCP led by Sharad Pawar. It would be interesting to see that what exactly will be the margin, because from 2014, when Gopinath Munde contested his first election, and after that his demise happened, his daughter Pankaja's younger sister Pritam Munde contested that by-election, and after that in 2019 also she contested the election. In every election, the Munde family has got overwhelming response from the people of Bid. But in 2019, when Pankaja contested the state assembly election, she got defeated by her cousin brother Dhananjay Munde, who is with NCP. But now the Ajit Pawar-led faction has joined hands with BJP and Shiv Sena government in Maharashtra. Dhananjay Munde is helping Pankaja Munde. He was seen campaigning for her in the entire Bid district. So that's why Pankaja is very much confident that she will get a good number of votes and win with a good margin.
Mayuresh, many thanks for joining us. Mayuresh reporting there from Bid in Maharashtra. Prime Minister Modi has said there is no change in the narrative, reiterating that the NDA will easily, and I quote, cross the 400 mark. Speaking to Network 18, Prime Minister Modi said no pressure on him, predicting a surprise in both Andhra and Telangana. That's a Network 18 exclusive.
मैंने करीब हिंदुस्तान के 3-4 राज्य बाकी है, सभी राज्यों का भ्रमण किया है, और सभी राज्यों के भ्रमण से मैं देख रहा हूं कि ये आंधी है, आंधी,
बड़ी आंधी, और 2019 से बड़ी वाली आंधी
400 पार बहुत आराम से देश की जनता करने वाली है। विपक्ष 19 से 24 में विपक्ष के नाते भी विफल गया है, जो लोग विपक्ष के नाते भी विस्फल गए हो, उनको इतना बड़े देश का कारोबार कौन देगा?
Well, that's the Prime Minister. Time for a break. But when we return, Zomato delivers in Q4 with a revenue growth of 73%. That and more when we return. First access to the most influential architects of policies and politics, the key newsmakers of the day. Discover the big themes as we decode the business of markets, macros and more. Be the first to go to the heart of all the top stories that drive the day's agenda. Catch the award-winning India Business Hour live every night on YouTube with me, Shireen Bhatt.
India Business Hour live on YouTube at CNBCTV18 weeknights at 7 p.m. A show that is unmatched.
We tell you stocks to watch out for and which sectors are impacted.
Thought-provoking.
In India, the allocation to equity is about 5 to 10%, which is not beating inflation. So investing aggressively can actually look at even beating inflation.
And will give you maximum value for your money.
It is a good time to look at debt funds as a category. There's no better time than this in that sense to lock in rates for the long term.
A masterclass with India's biggest market experts. Smart money at these times.
What does it take to build India's largest startup platform? It takes a journey of starting out as an unknown and ending up as unforgettable. It takes more than 2 decades of celebrating the most influential and influencing the most celebrated entrepreneurs. From chronicling the stories of India's startup universe to becoming a success story in itself, as India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. Celebrating 21 action-packed years of building India's biggest startup community. Young Turks at 21. Only on CNBC TV18 and CNBCTV18.com. Well, it's time to bring you the market action of the day. The Sensex and the Nifty did stage a recovery in late trade. Financials outperforming, helping the Bank Nifty rise about 1%. The Volatility Index rose 12%, hitting the highest levels in nearly 2 years. That's the Nifty up by about 48 points. The Sensex closing 100 points higher. The Nifty Bank 300 points higher. And the Nifty Midcap Index closing 200 points higher. All indices closing in the green for the day, coming off their intraday lows. Zomato reporting a strong set of numbers in Q4. The company posted a net profit of 175 crores. Mangalam is standing by with more. Mangalam, so Zomato continuing to deliver on profitability?
You just take a look at the numbers that the company has reported. It's a 73% revenue growth that they've reported, 3,562 crores. On the EBITDA front, there is a gain of 86 crores. This compares to the loss of 226 crores. And that was pretty much understandable because, you know, the company has been EBITDA profitable for the last 3 quarters. So the base quarter is the last quarter where the company reported an EBITDA loss. The net profit is 175 crores. Now, you would be, you know, tempted to ask, why is it that the EBITDA is 86 crores and the net profit nearly double of that? That's because Zomato, with the having around 12,000 crore of cash on their books, also has a large proportion of their earnings coming in from other income. That's about 235 crores, which is a jump of around 37% year on year. In terms of the food business, operating leverage is clearly playing out. Growth in the food business is lower than the overall consolidated revenue growth. That's because it's actually been led by quick commerce. So food delivery growth has come in at around 48% on the top line. The EBIT actually has grown at around 247%. So their margins have improved by nearly 1,000 basis points from 6.9% to about 16.2%. Quick commerce, and here's where the big driver has come in. 111% growth in the company's revenue out there in Blinket. 769 crores is what they've reported on the top line, and they've turned EBIT positive. So from a loss of 179 crores same time last quarter, they've reported a gain of 2 crores, and this is largely in line, in fact slightly better than management estimates of being adjusted EBITDA profitable by the first quarter of FY25 or before that. Well, they've done that before that itself. Hyperpure has seen a revenue doubling, but on the operational front, it's still loss-making, around a 16 crore loss versus a 40 crore loss. But, all the parts are playing well for Zomato. where the food business is growing slightly shy of the overall company's growth, but contributing a lot more to the EBITDA, and the QCOM business is driving the growth with about 112% growth and now has turned operationally profitable as well. Maybe a bit of profit taking is what we're seeing alongside the street waiting for the management commentary on the way forward as well. But these numbers not really anything to suggest there's a big dip in the stock or no operational decay as the numbers are reported.
Manglam, many thanks. Now, there is sudden weather change in the national capital as well as the financial capital. Mumbai being hit with strong dusty winds, thunder and cloudy skies. In fact, in some parts it is now starting to rain as well. In the capital, meanwhile, Delhi also seeing untimely rains. This afternoon, the weather department has warned that thunderstorms accompanied with lightning and moderate spells of rain are very likely to occur at isolated places in Mumbai and Delhi during the next 3 to 4 hours. Well, you've got the mercury rising and you have these unexpected thunderstorms taking place in both the capital as well as the financial capital. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right after this. Stay tuned. We're back in a minute. Markets have not just grown, they've broken several records in the last 25 years.
India's contribution to incremental global GDP was as low as 0.2% 25 years ago.
Over the last 25 years, CNBCTV18 has closely followed the remarkable ascent of India's pharmaceutical sector.
There was a time 25 years back that it was all about the FIIs. If FIIs would buy, markets would rally. If FIIs would sell, market would fall.
Earlier, we were net importers of steel.
From IT services to SaaS, from consumer electronics to space tech, from mere programming to AI ML.
Cars, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, commercial vehicles have significantly become much more expensive than they were 2 decades ago.
Discounting is high there, but their focus is squarely on the 125cc segment.
Now it is contributing 16% of incremental global GDP.
Now we are looking at exporting the steel that's made here in India.
Welcome to the first ever India Business Leader Awards.
Cars, two-wheelers and vehicles generally being manufactured today are much lower on emissions and much higher on safety.
India's technology industry has been at the forefront of cutting-edge innovation over the last 25 years.
It's the retail which is the driving force for the market right now.
Clearly, we have arrived on the global economic stage.
Great way to celebrate our own 25th year with new milestones being achieved on Dalal Street.
21 years of the Nifty from 1,000 to 10,000 today.
Sensex and Nifty hit a record high.
The Nifty rallying to a record high.
We invite you to join us as we persist in leading coverage of the pharmaceutical and healthcare domain, documenting India's expanding expertise in medicines. As chronic diseases continue to impact our lives with increasing frequency, there's a growing curiosity about the role of sleep in managing and preventing these conditions. Notably, insufficient sleep has been identified as a contributing factor to several chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity and depression. For example, when it comes to diabetes, research has established a connection between inadequate sleep and an elevated risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Similarly, in cardiovascular health, individuals with sleep disorders like sleep apnea are at a heightened risk of conditions such as hypertension, stroke and heart disease. Moving on to obesity, studies have highlighted the correlation between short sleep duration and weight gain. And when it comes to children, it is particularly concerning as insufficient sleep may interfere with crucial brain development processes. Lastly, the delicate relationship between sleep and depression adds another layer of complexity. While sleep disturbances are often symptoms of depression, recent findings suggest that addressing sleep disorders like sleep apnea and adequate sleep can help reduce or alleviate depressive symptoms. Today, we're privileged to have Luke Coutinho, renowned celebrity, lifestyle and health expert, joining us to delve into the vital importance of sleep. Let's explore together how prioritizing sleep can be a cornerstone for our overall health and well-being. Luke, hi, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, good to have you back again. I've been seeing a lot of your posts and a lot of it has this t-shirt that you're wearing, I am Mr. Sleep. Tell us more about this particular t-shirt. What are you trying to advocate? What is the importance of sleep?
Great, Ekta. So a couple of months ago, I decided, let me look at my data. We have so many sick people, cancer, cardiovascular, diabetes. I love how you've pulled out the correlation of the science and sleep deprivation. And I asked myself, do people need more diets? Do they need more medicine? We have enough of all of that stuff. What are we missing? And then I started looking at the data because all of our clients fill up forms before they come to us. And sleep deprivation is a commonality between most of these people and children who have lifestyle diseases. Now, I'm not saying this has caused it alone, but it's a contributing factor. So while, yes, we have great medical systems that can medicate you the right way, we have nutrition to fit in. What about our sleep? That's free, it's inexpensive, and it's one of the most misused tools that we have for prevention as well as recovery. So I decided, hey, I want to be Mr. Sleep and start driving awareness because everyone knows what they should eat. Everyone knows, please go to a doctor, listen to your doctor, take your meds. All of that is good. But I think sleep makes the biggest difference, and we're trying to make people understand. I reached out to people and I said, do you know why you sleep? Is it important for your health? They said, a lot of people said, no, I'll sleep when I die. It's a waste of time. I should make money. I want to spend more time with my family when I come home from work. And I was like, okay, we can do this and sleep well because that's the foundation. That's the foundation stone of great health.
But where do you think Indians are going wrong in their entire routine when it comes to sleep?
So I think, when something is not important to us, like I always say, what we don't value, we don't prioritize. We value things like work, coming home, being with family, television, OTT platforms, social media, which is all good. But the point is, how do I continue to do all of this? But hey, it's sleep time. Let me go to sleep. A simple example, our parents, when they have children, moms and dads want to create that sleep hygiene for a child because they know all the growth is going to happen while the child sleeps. So we do it for a few years. And then after that, we stop doing it, but we're the same human being, just a different age and a different size, but the same body and brain that requires sleep.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about how less sleep is associated with chronic diseases. It's associated with inflammation in the body. There is research indicating that it's associated with heart disease, kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, and depression, which I'll come to in just a bit more specifically. But how does it contribute to these chronic diseases and inflammation?
So let's understand the commonality between all the diseases you mentioned is chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation happens when our immune systems are not relaxed, they're confused, they're working the wrong way, they're always erratic because we're on the go, we're stressed out all the time, we don't relax, and we don't sleep. Now, the reason why human beings sleep is for several functions. One of it, your immune system starts to get smarter, it does certain jobs that it doesn't do when we're awake. Inflammation starts to come down, which is why when you undergo a surgery, your doctor will immediately tell you, go home and rest. Because he or she knows that only when you rest can the body repair itself. So when we're in a process of deep sleep, three things happen. We're in a parasympathetic nervous system, which means we can rest, we can digest, and we can repair and regenerate. But right now, while you and I are awake, okay, we're in the sympathetic nervous system because we're on television, we're prepped to answer questions. I'm not able to regenerate. I'm not in the right system. So when I sleep, regeneration starts. That's why if you look at a child or anyone, you fall down and you get a wound. The scab doesn't grow during the day. You sleep, you wake up, and then you find a scab has grown. So a lot of healing and regeneration, inflammatory processes and mechanisms start to work efficiently when we sleep and when we're sleep deprived. These are lifestyle diseases that you mentioned. You know, they start to go. And if you look at the data of a diabetic, and when you take their blood sugar levels in the morning and you see they're all over the place, the first two questions, how much did you sleep? What time did you eat your last meal? And they have a direct impact on your blood sugar levels in the morning. And in our country right now, pre-diabetes is huge. And sleep deprivation is directly connected with that and all the other conditions that you mentioned.
Okay, well, I'm going to come to the connection of sleep with mental health disorders such as depression. Now, studies have shown that not only insufficient sleep, but it is too much sleep, which also increases the risk of mental health disorders such as depression. Give us a sense in terms of what the connections are and what do you see in your practice?
Absolutely. So see, we follow circadian rhythms, which is usually sunset, sunrise. Everything is the law of nature. Everything is a rhythm. You put your hand on your chest, you have a rhythm of your heartbeat, a pulse, your breath, rhythm, digestive cycle, rhythm. Sleep is a rhythm that is also controlled, and our rhythms change. They start and they end. So I do have to wake up within a particular time. Now, when is this? When my body sends a signal, everything is done, regeneration is done, detoxification is done, we automatically wake up. Automatically. For some people, this could be 7 hours, some people 8. Now, if I'm sleep deprived or I'm depressed or I don't have a purpose to wake up to that day, I'm just feeling, you know, absolutely like low, and I try to sleep 9 hours or 10 hours, this can have the reverse effect, not just on my mood, but even my cardiovascular health. Sleeping for more than required can actually disturb your actual natural circadian rhythm, now producing inflammation. I need to wake up at a particular time because there are several functions in the body. That's why cortisol shoots up when we wake. But if I'm still sleeping, my blood sugar levels have to balance. So anything in excess or too little is a harm in the body, and that's the connection. When we wake up, we connect with natural light. So my dopamine, my serotonin, all of my neurotransmitters that are linked with my mood start to balance. But if I'm sleeping in that dark room and I've not adjusted to the circadian rhythm, that imbalance of my neurotransmitters happen, which immediately affect my mood.
Okay, so sleeping too little and sleeping too much, both of them can probably have impact on mental health disorders. But just to extend that point forward, you know, I was looking at a couple of your posts, and you've indicated that a lot of people who come to you with lack of purpose, direction, possibly some form of depression, the first thing you work on is sleep. So what have been the visible changes in your practice?
So actually, you are right about that. My first question to anyone who comes to me, whether they have a pimple on their face to a 4th stage cancer, is their sleep. Because see, all these people coming to us already have their doctors treating them. We're integrative medicine. They already have some changes happening. For me, recovery is all about the environment. We can have the best medication, but the wrong environment. So how do you create that environment? It's sleep. For depression, for cardiovascular, for cancer, when the body is able to sleep deeply, hormones start to get balanced. Hormones are your communicators. Hormones are chemical messengers that's telling the body what to do, what not to do. So when we have hormonal imbalances, either someone's producing too much estrogen or too little testosterone because the communication is wrong. So the first question is sleep, because if you're sleep deprived and you already have symptoms of depression, your depression is actually going to get worse. And we don't want that person to have to take more medicine to fix a problem that sleep can fix. So once we assess their sleep, then we know, okay, these are the avenues we're going to have to work with. It doesn't have to be always more medicine or more superfoods or more exercise. Sometimes we need to slow down and say, just sleep well. And when our patients start to sleep better, the reflection is not just on their bodies, it's at a symptomatic level and even in their blood parameters directly. So that's why sleep continues to be a very, very important question for us.
What is the linkage of sleep with stress?
Everything. And a little bit of science over here, because once people understand this, now you and I, if we get stressed out, cortisol increases, adrenaline increases. When that increases, estrogen goes up, progesterone comes down, testosterone comes down. We have a hormonal imbalance. We're fine for a short period of time. But if I continue moving on from one stressor to another, cortisol stays up. Now my blood pressure, my blood sugar, my cholesterol, and all the hormones are out of whack. And that leads to chronic illness eventually. So we can be stressed. All of us are with stress. But how quickly we can diffuse it or realize I'm stressed, let me take a 5-minute break. breathe, settle down, bring down the cortisol. So the more stressed you are, the more inflammation you're going to have, the more weight you're going to carry, stubborn weight. There are a few people who react the opposite way. When they're stressed, they don't eat, so they lose weight. But for most people, because of that excess estrogen and insulin, when your insulin is high, you can never burn body fat. So you'd be doing a 1-hour workout, but you're not burning fat. You're still breaking down sugar, glycogen in the body, and that's why people get frustrated with their workouts. Now, you bring in sleep as your deepest rest. When you improve sleep, fat loss becomes easier. Fat loss becomes easier. Most of the metabolic syndromes that we spoke about are linked with obesity and excess fat cells. So chronic stress and obesity and all of these problems are directly connected. Now, let's not get confused. You and I get stressed a little bit. Please, that stress is good for us, but it can't stay chronically high all the time. It needs to come down. We need to relax. Have an outburst, relax. Take a walk outside, calm down, bring down cortisol. The quicker we bring down cortisol, the healthier we are.
Yeah, but you know, there are some problems in families where there is chronic stress, and that probably weighs on the entire family, and that causes disturbances of sleep, maybe on a longer term basis. Say somebody has cancer in the family, for example, or is dealing with a disease, etc. In that case, you know, sleep is beyond your control. You want to sleep, but you just have too much stress, which allows you to sleep. What does one do in one case?
There's a beautiful word that I'll introduce right now. It's called acceptance. It's the only way. See, we can't ask families like this, sit down and meditate. They're so stressed out. It can help them a little bit. But the truth is, okay, there's, let's say, hypothetical family, there's a cancer diagnosis, someone's suffering. All we can do right now, accept the situation and do our best. But most of us, because of this emotional stress, we're trying to control things that are not in our control. We don't know what outcomes are going to be. So a lot of our stress is broken down by, I accept the situation. What is the best I can do? Most people don't move to action. We're still stuck in problem solving. Why did it happen? Victim mode, all of that. And it's okay to go through those phases. But finally, even for the patient to get better, they have to be in a state of acceptance. And now the family, okay, this is there. We're all doing our best. These are responsibilities. We also start to realize we need to look after our health for the patient. So we don't stop eating well. We don't stop sleeping well. These are tools that enable us to better help people who need our help in these families. And then there are some toxic relationships. But again, we need to fix those things. We can't upset the foundations of human health for a temporary problem. But take help at that point. Speak to a counselor where you can vent out, talk, because the more you communicate and vent, the lesser your stress is going to be.
What is the concept of sleep deficit or sleep debt? Does that actually exist?
Oh, absolutely not. I'll give you an example. In 7 or 8 hours of sleep, there's magic that happens. We can't take a split because in our REMs and non-REMs, there are certain stages of sleep. In non-REM 1, there are certain functions that happen. Non-REM 2. Non-REM 3, which is towards the latter part, is the most important. That's when detoxification happens, and that's when our hormonal balance happens. So let's say I have disturbed sleep. I've not reached my full cycle. And let's say I take an afternoon nap. My body's not going to go back and say, let's start off at non-REM 3. I would love to take an afternoon nap to kind of build that rest and recovery, but sleep debt doesn't work for us. A lot of people think I'll sleep on the weekend for 10, 11, 12, 13, because the body's dynamic. Right now, it's working for us every second of the day and night. So it needs its rhythm when it needs its rhythm.
So how important is sleeping on time?
It's beautiful because it's a rhythm. It's a rhythm. So if you look at nocturnal animals, right, they will come out at night. You will never find a day animal awake at night and a nocturnal awake at day. Humans are the only species because of lifestyle where, you know, we kind of turn this model on its head. But we know today that science is showing us, and this is not to put pressure on anyone, the 2 hours before midnight are the most powerful for the human body when it comes to sleep. But now, we don't have to get worried about that. There are pilots, there's the Army, there's the Navy, there are doctors, nurses working shifts. It's not a problem. As long as the body finally gets the sleep that it requires, we can function, we can prevent, and we can recover. But now let's say I have the ability to sleep at 10, but I'm sleeping at 3 or 4 in the morning. And then I have to wake up at 8 for work. I'm sleep deprived, and I am creating huge problems in the human body.
Okay. How important is sleep when it comes to exercise? Say for athletes, marathoners, you've heard of, you know, high-level executives sleeping for 4 hours and then going for a jog and then sometimes even, you know, it not working out well and collapsing.
It's absolutely ridiculous because when we exercise more, we need more recovery, right? What do athletes do? Eat, sleep, and train, repeat. They can train that much because they rest that much. So I always tell people, they're like, oh, I landed from New York and I went for a run. Great for Instagram and Facebook, but not great for you. The point is rest and then go and do your workout, because you can't change the laws of nature. The body needs rest. You never work out a tired body. You never work out a fatigued body, because that body is already under stress. Your blood pressure is going to be up, inflammatory markers are going to be up. So that is a recipe for disaster. So, I always tell people, running marathons, great, but then act like an athlete. Train like an athlete, which is eat like them and also sleep like them. You can't run and say, I want to have my social life. That is one of the huge reasons that we have a lot of young people dying today of heart attacks, because they don't understand the importance of sleep and recovery. A lot of them have minor blockages. They've not tested themselves. They've not screened themselves.
What would you recommend to the CEO or, the high-level executive who doesn't get that much time away from his office but still wants to pursue his interest in running?
You can still do it. Do it 30 minutes, do it 40 minutes, but you can't. If you want to be choose CEO or a sportsman. That's what sportsmen do. They can't have everything. Look at them. I mean, certain truths have to be accepted. You can't be everything in life. A sportsman, I'm sure, would want to be so many things, but they need to focus on what their game is. A CEO needs to focus on that. They need to exercise, but be gentle with yourself. Or time management. We do some time management exercises with the billionaires of the world, and we still find that they have 4 to 5 hours extra in a day. Because when you budget time, you find out many things that we waste our time on. And then you realize, what's more important, this or your workout? My workout. Then let's move this over here and make some more time for your sleep. So it's always possible.
How important is eating well and eating correctly with sleep?
It's everything. Because
the timing as well.
Yes. Because if I eat the wrong foods, I can't sleep at night. Unfortunately, one thing in India is people eat very late night meals. And that is also connected with type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, and sleep deprivation. Now picture this, I eat a meal at 11 o'clock, a heavy meal. Let's say it's a biryani, carb-heavy meal, okay? And I go to sleep. I will fall asleep because I'm tired. Okay, as the carbs start to break down, what gets produced in the body? Energy. I'm not going to wake up, but I have a disruptive cycle. My pancreas have to produce insulin. So what I eat and when I eat, it's a beautiful question. The earlier I eat, the deeper my sleep's going to be, even what I eat. Now, let's say I came home at 10 o'clock tonight and I want to sleep at 11 and I'm hungry. I will eat protein and I will eat fats. I will not eat carbohydrates because my body doesn't have a requirement for carbohydrates. So I'll eat some veggies, I may eat a salad, whatever suits me, and some protein. So I can be flexible because lifestyle is such that today anything can change. But I will adapt according to what I'm eating. And I'll keep my heaviest meal, okay, for the earlier parts of the day.
Okay. How important is sleep for children? Because, there's a culture in India where fathers tend to come home late from the office. Children tend to spend time with them in the later hours, and they don't tend to sleep on what would be a regular time for a child. How important is sleep for children?
I don't like to preach about this, so I'm going to talk about a little bit of science right now. Why do babies sleep so many hours? They sleep because there's growth happening in them. Until they're a complete young adult, all the growth happens while they sleep. Their liver, their kidney, their hormones, their gut, everything. And that's why they sleep naturally longer. And as you see the infant growing up, their sleep slowly starts coming down because they're growing up. That is the importance of sleep. And you are absolutely right. Today, one of the biggest reasons in our country, besides lifestyle and environment for juvenile diabetes, PCOS, PCOD, is sleep deprivation. Medicine can't fix what sleep should do, nor can food. Sleep has to fix what sleep does. So I encourage parents out there, like, I understand you're coming home late, but let your child sleep. Maybe spend time with them in the morning or reorganize your weekend so that you can dedicate a weekend to them. I come home from late night flights as well, but my daughter will sleep on time because as much as I want to hold her and I want to give her gifts and, hug her, her sleep is way more important. So we can work around it when we think differently. But sleep is that foundation, not just for their health, but for their next day in school, their focus, their concentration. I can't tell you how many kids in our country and in Western cultures get put into the box of autism and ADHD. And while some are really genuine, a lot of them are sleep-deprived children. And if they slept better, their milestones would be way, way better. So sleep is extremely important for children.
Okay. What is your advice to people who are older and as they age, their sleep requirements and their sleep reduces? So what would you recommend to them?
Follow that cycle. Wake up in 5 hours, go for a walk, meditate. But don't do things that are further reducing your hours. Like don't sleep late at night, don't get addicted to WhatsApp and Candy Crush and all of these things. That's eating into your actual sleep window because you have a small window. But yes, as we age, our sleep cycles will fall. And a lot of senior citizens today say, I want to take a sleeping pill because I want to sleep 8 hours. But your body doesn't need 8 hours. Let it be natural. As long as you're getting into bed at the right time, waking up before sunrise or with sunrise, you're absolutely perfect, whether it was 5 or 6 hours of sleep.
"25 years of excellence and unparalleled growth."
CNBC TV18, embarking on a quarter century of excellence.
Maruti Suzuki had first launched the Swift way back in 2005. This has been one of their highest selling models. They've sold over 3 million Swift cars so far. And now this is the 4th generation Swift that has been launched with significant upgrades. The biggest upgrade is the 1.2 litre new Z series engine. This is the best engine that Maruti Suzuki has got in its stable. It also brings down the CO2 emissions by 10%. It gives you better fuel efficiency by 14% according to Maruti Suzuki. The average mileage that you'll get across the automatic and manual variants would be anywhere between 25 kilometers a litre to 26 kilometers a litre. High on safety as well. 6 airbags as standard across variants, even in the entry-level model. 3-point safety belts. You also have seat belt alerts. In terms of infotainment and connectivity in the car, you've got a 9-inch infotainment display, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You also have a wireless charger in front, 2 USB charging ports at the back. This is the first time that the Swift will get rear AC vents as well. They've also given LED lamps here in the front and the rear. Usually these are there in premium vehicles, but
Well, we have a couple of queries which we got, so I'm going to pose them to you. The first one is, the key question is, how much should one sleep, and is it the same for all ages?
It's not the same. For all ages, absolutely different. As we said, infants could sleep 17 to 18, and as we come down to an adult, anywhere. And I even hate saying 7 to 8 because everyone's different. Now picture person A sleeping for 6.5 hours, deep sleep, wakes up rested, ready to start the day. Someone sleeps for 8 hours but broken sleep, wakes up tired. It's not the quantity, it's the quality of sleep. So when we sleep deeper, our bodies are going to finish its process faster and wake us up sometimes in 6 hours, sometimes in 6.5, sometimes in 7. So it is different, and I encourage people to find out more or less what their average is. Like my average is between 8 to 8.5. Someone else is 7 to 7.5. And then try to fit yourself in that paradigm. How do you know your sleep is good for you? When you wake up in the morning, check in. Am I ready to start the day? Or do I need coffee to start my day? Or I'm like, I need more sleep. And then you say, oh, 6 hours